Good evening, Council colleagues. We're here tonight for our Committee of Adjustment meeting and then our regularly scheduled Council meeting. We're starting with our Committee of Adjustment meeting and then proceeding into Council. So as I open the meeting, I'll read our land acknowledgement. And the meeting I'm opening is our Committee of Adjustment meeting. The Municipality of North Grenville acknowledges that the municipality operates on the territory of the Anishinaabe. We recognize all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples who now call North Grenville their home. We respect and support the need for cultivating a strong relationship, and we commit to Indigenous informed decision-making to foster the path towards reconciliation. So, colleagues, as per the Committee of Adjustment, we are looking to approve the minutes from July 16th, 2025. And I'll look for a mover and a seconder for the adoption of those minutes. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Wilson, any comments or questions in regards to those minutes? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Next is disclosures of interest. Does any council colleague have a declaration of perceived or real financial benefit or loss arising from items on the Committee of Adjustment? Any declarations? Seeing none. So we'll move to reports. First, we have the Hilly Lane supplemental report, and then we have the exemption from interim control bylaw for capacity allocation. So we'll look to Ms. Martin for the supplemental report on Hilly Lane.
Thank you, Your Worship. As the committee recalls, at the last Committee of Adjustment meeting in July, on July 16th, there was a public meeting held for 1297 Hilly Lane, where staff provided a fulsome presentation related to the exemptions requested and the reductions requested under the comprehensive zoning bylaw. To that end, at the meeting, additional information was provided by the applicant as well as the neighbor, and the committee deferred their decision to allow for time to review those materials. Those materials were circulated to the committee, and the committee has had time to review. At this time, staff are not changing our recommendation as it was presented at the previous meeting. And if there's any questions related to the materials that were circulated, staff can do our best to answer those questions, but I do acknowledge that the applicant who prepared the materials is in the room with us this evening and may be better suited should the chair wish to address those comments to them. That concludes my presentation, and I am here for any questions related to this file should the committee wish.
Okay, colleagues, in regards to the matter at hand, of course, we did defer this the last time in order to give staff an opportunity to prepare any supplemental remarks and also for council colleagues to review the additional information certainly submitted by the applicant. So colleagues, it's really up to you whether or not you have additional questions of the applicant. As I understand it, Ms. Martin, this is not a public meeting, but it is an opportunity for us to obtain more information as we need it. I also want to recognize, certainly in my discussions with Ms. Martin, while we absolutely understand her policy recommendation, there is an opportunity to consider alternate ways to proceed, which obviously would include granting the variance that was requested for the canopy, the deck extension, and the accessory structures where applicable. And I know Ms. Martin was helpful in supplying us with some of the language to that end, should that be council's wish to go in the direction of granting the variance. So I'll just open it up to any colleagues for comments or reflections at this stage. I have some comments myself, but I could reserve them until the end. Councillor Sullivan, I think I see your hand.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. My comment is that I believe that it's a really important thing that people can age in their own home, and certainly there's a lot of leeway in terms of modifying insides of homes, the interior of homes, to make it a better place, a safer place to age in your own home. And so I would definitely support anything that would allow people to age in place in their home. And if that means alterations to the exterior in order that it becomes safe and accessible for them, then I'm supportive of that.
All right, thank you very much. Any other comments at this stage, colleagues? So I don't see any hands. So really, it's at our discretion. We have a recommendation, of course, and we want to thank staff. These are always complex files, and there's a lot of policy constraints and policy considerations when it comes to these particular matters. But as previously stated, I think we recognize that it's really at the discretion of this body whether or not the variance is granted. So with that in mind, I have some alternate language that could be contemplated for this for council to consider. And that, so let me introduce it, so you're aware of it, and that is that the Committee of Adjustment approved permission from Section 30.2 of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 5012 to permit a maximum lot coverage of 24% from 15%, a reduced interior yard setback from 3 meters to 0.06, to decrease the minimum required front yard setback from 20 meters to 4.6 meters, and to increase the number of accessory structures from 1 to 3. That being said, the conditions that would apply in regards to a potential approval, subject to the decision of this body, is that a building permit is required for the canopy deck extension and accessory structures where applicable, approval from the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority for the canopy deck extension and accessory structure where applicable, and that the applicants enter into a site plan control agreement to regulate the location of the deck extension, canopy, and accessory structures. So that certainly is another way for us to proceed this evening, should it be the appetite of council. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Generally, I'd be supportive of that permission, but I would like to understand better the conditions. You went through them rather quickly. In particular, the accessory structures, the 3 accessory structures.
Certainly, and we can ask
what are the
Ms. Martin.
conditions? Yeah, what are the conditions related to that?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the Deputy Mayor. The municipality does not have any records of any permits from either Rideau Valley Conservation Authority or from the municipality to permit those structures on the property. 2 of them would be undersized in accordance with the building code in regards to needing a structure because they're under 160 square feet, but there is a structure over 300 square feet on the property without permits. So they would be required to get permits in regards to the accessory structures. As well, the deck extension and canopy were also constructed without permits, as we don't have any records, and permits will be required from both Rideau Valley and the municipality to legalize those structures.
So, Ms. Martin, it's just a process by which the structures themselves are validated for safety and other matters. Is that right?
That is correct, Your Worship. They need to ensure that they meet the requirements of the building code. So they have to retroactively apply for a building permit and work with our building division to submit the appropriate documentation to show that it meets the code.
All right. Yes, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, to Director Martin. Were these accessory structures on the site before the current owner purchased, or were they put there by the current owner?
Through your worship to Councillor O'Sullivan. So I believe 1 or 2 of the structures pre-existed the purchase of the property based on conversation with the property owners, and the larger structure was put on the property by themselves. It was a pre-constructed structure that they brought in. They are aware the requirements to get a building permit. It's as we have no records, they will need to legalize them.
So if they were there before they bought it, would that be on their survey? Would there be on their legal documents when they purchased it? I did a drive-by down Hilly Lane, and it seems like there's a lot of accessory buildings on almost every lot that I drove by. So would they be all those owners be in the same situation with accessory buildings that are not legal?
Through your worship to Councillor Sullivan, staff would have to undertake an exercise of pulling all the property files and reviewing all of the structures on every property on Hilly Lane to provide an assessment as to which structures were placed there legally with permits and which ones do not have permits. If that's the desire of council to do so, that we need a directive to undertake that task. In this case, we received a complaint related to the construction of the canopy and its location, which upon investigation and review of a survey that was provided by the applicants and historical aerial photography, it was determined that some structures have been placed on the property, and we have no records that demonstrate that they received permits to do so. I can't speak to all the other properties, only this one, because this is the file that we are actively working on. And as we're going through this process, one of the asks of the applicants is to legalize all of the structures, so then that in the future, when they go to sell the property or when the property changes hands, they have the certainty that all the structures, if applicable, have the required permits, they're permitted to be there, and they meet the intent of the zoning bylaw.
Thank you.
And certainly, I think, as I understand it, the discretion that exists tonight is to grant the variance. Obviously, we can't circumvent the building code or those requirements. So really, I think where we have the most significant influence this evening, should council wish, is to grant or deny the request for the variance. So I appreciate your questions, Councillor Sullivan, but I expect that the constraints of the planning department certainly don't allow for us to grant reprieve from a building permit requirement, if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Martin. Okay, just wanted to make sure. So colleagues, at this point, I'm looking for direction on a motion to either approve the requested variance. The language has just been provided to me from Ms. Martin, and I appreciate that she was able to do that. So I'm seeking for a member of council to move in one direction or another. Yes. Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Sullivan. You both have your hands up, and then Councillor Strachan.
Yeah, I'd be willing to move, but I need to review the other conditions besides the
Sure.
accessories, because it's the first time I'm hearing it.
I can reread them, is that helpful?
Yeah, would you mind?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so the conditions are: a building permit is required for the canopy, deck extension, and accessory structures where applicable. The second is approval from the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority for the canopy, deck extension, and accessory structures, where applicable, and that the applicants enter into a site plan control agreement to regulate the location of the deck extension, canopy, and accessory structures.
And I guess this is to Ms. Martin. The agreement, what leverage do we have in terms of enforcing that agreement if we do make an agreement?
Through your worship to the deputy mayor, so we would have, the agreement would stipulate what is permitted on the property. It would also enshrine the building location survey that was provided as part of this process. It would incorporate all the approvals from the various authorities. In the future, should they be in contravention of their agreement, we would have the legal remedies as outlined in the agreement. So we could pursue it kind of in that civil matter to ensure compliance. It's only pertaining to the locations of the buildings itself. It wouldn't address things such as grading or drainage.
I have Councillor Sullivan next, and then Councillor Strachan.
I was just going to say that I would either move or second it. I thought that Deputy Mayor was going to move it, but I will move
Okay,
to approve the variance.
excellent, and I can reread it for everyone's edification, but I'll look for a seconder now that it's been moved. Do we have a seconder? And then I'm going to go to Councillor Strachan, but since it's been moved, okay, excellent. So the motion to approve the requested variance is now on the table, and I will go to Councillor Strachan. And then if anyone else wishes to speak to it, please raise your hands.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, my request was simply to have it read out in its completeness before we moved forward with it so that it was well understood. We've moved past that, so I think we're good.
I'm happy because I recognize I read it quickly. So just so we all know what's on the table now, apart from the conditions, which have been read, The motion is that the Committee of Adjustment approve permission from Section 30.2 of Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 5012 to permit a maximum lot coverage of 24% from 15%, a reduced interior yard setback from 3 meters to 0.06 meters, to decrease the minimum required front yard setback from 20 meters to 4.6 meters, and to increase the number of accessory structures from 1 to 3. Effectively, as I understand it, Ms. Martin, that is the request of the applicant and would allow, as long as building permits and RVC approvals were obtained, would allow the deck, the carport, and the structures to remain on the site. Is that the case?
That is correct, Your Worship. I do also want to preface as well that the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority approvals are beyond our authority. And in the event that the Rideau Valley would not permit the structures or the extension or the canopy, then the minor variance would not stand.
So their authority supersedes the municipalities?
It's a condition of the variance that they get approvals from Rideau Valley. So if the approvals are not gained from Rideau Valley, then they wouldn't be permitted to have that. My understanding and in conversation with the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority is that they've been working closely with the applicants to come to the ideal conditions for their property, which is why the applicants are reducing the size of the canopy to just over the deck extension. And there's been conversation where there's a level of comfort with that. Again, approvals haven't been given to date, but they've worked to a point where it sounds as if it would be more favorable to move forward to get the approvals they need from the Conservation Authority based on the actions that they've taken to date.
Colleagues, any other comments or questions? Do we wish to hear from the applicant before we move on, or are we satisfied with the discussion to date? Does the applicant wish to say anything at the present time? Okay. So then, if there are no other questions, I'm going to call the vote. All in favor, please. Okay. So the approvals with condition, or the approval has been granted with conditions, and we want to thank the applicant and, of course, municipal staff.
Sorry, Your Worship, to interrupt. There is a second resolution in regard to the high water mark. We did separate that out from the other variances requested, only in that we didn't know which way those variances could go. So I just wanted to flag that for you before you close the matter.
Indeed. Okay. So thank you. I appreciate that you brought that back to my attention. So the second consideration, colleagues, is that the Committee of Adjustment, and I'll endeavor to read more slowly. The Committee of Adjustment approve permission from section, approve permission? Is that what we're doing? Grant permission from section 6.25A of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 5012 to reduce the required setback from a building or structure from the high water mark of a water body from 30 meters to 12.20 meters. And maybe, Ms. Martin, you can just explain what the function of that secondary motion is.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the house and the original deck were built circa 1965 and do enjoy legal non-complying status. All we're doing is just recognizing that setback of the house, given that our zoning standards, they came after the structures were built. So we're just formally recognizing that.
Okay, thank you. So, colleagues, would someone like to move and second? Deputy Mayor? Anyone else? Councillor Sullivan, thank you. Any discussions? Obviously, that sounds like more of a formality, Ms. Martin, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. So I'm going to call the question on that. All in favor? All right. That carries. And I think then, in regards to the Hilly Lane variance, we are at the end of the matter. Is that right, Ms. Martin? Ms. Wood? Okay. Excellent. So thank you again. I know I know the applicant and her family put a lot of work into engaging in the process and preparing a lot of supplementary documents to help us understand your journey. So we appreciate all of your time and energy, and I want to thank Ms. Martin and her staff. Often it's a complex matter when you look at these sorts of variances, and I know Ms. Martin has worked hard to sort of make sure that Council had the opportunity to sort of consider all options in this case. So we want to thank the planning team for their hard work as well. So good luck to you. We hope that your collaboration with the RVCA is successful, and wish you all the best. Oh, if you'd like to ask a question, we just need you to come up to the mic. Okay, perfect. Ms. Martin's going to do it on the side. Okay, thank you. So, thank you again. Next, I'm just going to call up my agenda. We're moving to the consideration of the interim control bylaw exemptions, and I will just call up my agenda again. Here we go. So, Ms. Wood, do you want to walk us through? Are we considering the interim control bylaw as one matter or as separate matters for each application that's been filed?
I do have resolutions for each and every one, but I believe the presentation will put them as a whole.
Okay, perfect. And who's providing that presentation?
Mr. Mike Bentley.
Mr. Finley. Excellent. Okay. Thank you for being here.
No problem. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is the first time we've brought a capacity allocation report to the Committee of Adjustment. And this is with the change in the interim control bylaw that was passed in June and came into effect as of July 1st. And what this interim control bylaw has done is required that any development that is looking for wastewater capacity allocation for their development must receive approval from this committee to be exempt from the bylaw in order to move forward. This is a second iteration from our capacity allocation bylaw that was approved back in 2020 when capacity constraints were being realized at our water pollution control plant, and we were looking to ensure that development that can move forward, are ready to move forward, received their permissions and didn't hold up other developments. So with this capacity allocation bylaw, there was quarterly intakes. And the second quarter for 2025 ended on June 30th. And that is where these applications were received. And I'll go through them, each application just quickly on what was there. And were reviewed on based on that capacity allocation bylaw. Of course, now with the interim control bylaw, that approval has come back to this this Committee of Adjustment for review. So there is two items that I'll go through. One is the developments themselves that require an exemption from the bylaw. The other is another exemption for 853 Prescott Street, because although they are within the urban service area, they aren't being developed on the sanitary system. They're being developed with a septic system and therefore not required any capacity. So in efforts to not hold up that development, it's required an adjustment there as well. So to go through, as I mentioned, the capacity allocation bylaw required that any applications wishing to receive conditional capacity allocation for sanitary servicing submit their applications by June 30th. We did receive 5 applications by that timeline. A 6th application did come in a few days afterwards on July 8th. However, as they missed the submission deadline, that request was disqualified and not reviewed. So the 5 applications that the municipality received were for the Jack Joseph subdivision phase 1, 206 Asa Street, 110 Elvira Street West, 121 George Street West phase A, and Oxford Village phase 2A. So those were the 5 applications that were received. Again, points are allocated based on, reviewed by staff based on the capacity allocation bylaw, to which staff made some recommendations in terms of the Jack Joseph subdivision, awarding 7 points, the 206 Asa Street awarding 7 points, the 110 Elvira Street West awarding 6 points, the 121 George Street West, 5 points, and Oxford Village Phase 2A, 5 points as well. In terms of the actual full capacity being requested during this quarter, was just over 100 cubic meters of average day flow to the wastewater or water pollution control plant. Unfortunately, based on the available capacity that was available for this quarterly review, there was only about just over 86 cubic meters of average day flow. So based on the points awarded, staff took the recommendation to award capacity to 4 of the developments, and looking to not award conditional capacity to 1 of the developments, with the understanding that, as per also the applicant that didn't meet the deadline, there is the opportunity to reapply as part of the interim control bylaw process, which will have another intake later this fall. So based on that, the recommendation from staff, again, as I mentioned, is to move forward with 4 of the applications, which is the Jack Joseph subdivision, the 206 Asa Street subdivision, the 110 Elvira Street West subdivision, the 121 George Street West subdivision, but not the Oxford Village Phase 2A. I do want to note that this was relayed to all applicants, and a letter was received from the Oxford Village Phase 2A development regarding their scoring. They did not agree with the scoring from staff. This was circulated to council to understand where their recommendations were coming from the applicant. So that is the basis of my report, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Finley. Colleagues, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Director Finley. From your report, I understand there's 86 cubic meters available. And
Correct.
that's, so it's impossible to grant the exception to all the applicants because that would be over 86 cubic meters. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Can you unpack that letter? I've had a busy day. It just came to my attention today. The rationale that the applicant has for changing the score, can you address those 2 rationales for me? Thanks.
Thank you for the question, and I'll kind of walk through my part of it. I may ask Director Martin to aid in that as well. But from what we understand, in terms of the points awarded for further advanced or affordable housing for the subdivision, the applicant has made the determination that the overall development will meet the 10% that is required for the scoring. However, staff did not see that for the individual units that were being applied under this application. In terms of the other adjustment in points, was that the applicant had stated that there is zoning in place. There is some draft approval conditions there. And then staff were looking at in terms of the development looking to proceed and move forward. And because the draft conditions are currently being appealed by the applicant, it creates that idea of unable to move that piece of the development forward. So those are the 2 pieces that were being discussed in terms of where the applicant saw points available versus where staff saw points available.
Thank you very much. Madam Mayor, can I have another question? This time to Director Martin. The final point made in that letter concerns, staff has difficulty, from what I understand, in accepting that rationale because the draft conditions are currently under appeal. Is that correct?
Through your worship to the deputy mayor, that is correct. The draft we received a few weeks ago, or the counties, I should say, sorry, received a few weeks ago, and a notice of appeal to the draft conditions for Oxford Village Phase 2. So from a staff perspective, when reviewing at this time, even though the counties has issued draft approval, the fact that they've been appealed now creates uncertainty as to the timeline as to when that approval will be in effect. The Ontario Land Tribunal can take quite a bit of time to work through that process. There will be negotiations, for the better part of a word, to try and resolve the issues prior to going to a hearing. But should a hearing be required, that in itself, we have no timeline currently to provide to council as to when we could even anticipate a pre-hearing conference. So given the other projects that had applied and are further advanced in the approvals process that way, that staff provided that recommendation for the scoring as how we scored it based on those factors.
Great. Well, given the fact that we have limited capacity to delegate, I'm inclined to go with staff's recommendation because if the rationale that the applicant presented had merit with the rest of council, it would exclude another applicant. We've just got a limited amount of capacity at this round, possibly more capacity at the next round. Is that correct? So I'm inclined to support the recommendation from council. Thank you.
From staff. Ms. Martin?
Thank you, Your Worship, for recognizing my hand. I just also wanted to add, for council's benefit, is that we do, in our allocation of conditional capacity, there is a 1-year timeline in being able to achieve reaching the necessary approvals to start developing. And that was another factor when evaluating all of the applications was within that year timeframe, if a capacity were to be allocated, can those projects achieve building permit and start construction? So that was another factor when reviewing as projects in regards to their readiness and how far advanced they are in the approvals process is how sooner can they get shovels in the ground.
Great, thank you. Councillor Wilson?
Through you, Mayor Peckford, thank you for that explanation, Director Martin. That was a question I was going to ask. How close, for example, I will say it, how close is Jack Joseph subdivision to putting shovels in the ground?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Wilson. Through your worship, they have, Jack Joseph has draft conditions that are approved. Those were approved via settlement through the Ontario Land Tribunal. It's just a matter of completing their engineering studies and entering to the subdivision agreement. So they are much closer as those approvals are already in place, and they're working through the process to finalize their engineering to get the subdivision ready for construction.
Okay. And supplemental, it's okay. Some of the other projects that we've already approved, say, for example, do we have, and I don't remember, does 120 Reuben, has it been allocated capacity yet, the new commons?
Through your worship to Councillor Wilson, yes, New Commons Development has received their conditional capacity for their development. The site plan agreement is being signed this week, and building permit has been submitted and is being reviewed for that project.
Okay. I'm just looking at the pecking order and seeing where we are with these, and if there's somehow we can shuffle the deck to move things up, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other comments, colleagues? My only question to Mr. Finley is I know there was a reassessment of the available capacity, so it went from 71.7 cubic meters to 86.2 cubic meters. And what's the data that, I mean, I know there's great data, but please, why don't you take the opportunity to articulate why you were able to accommodate more applications than initially thought? Because I think the risk when you rejig the available capacity is it may look subjective, or that you're sort of working to accommodate some applications and not others. And So I'd be curious to know, as you move ahead, my understanding is you're using real-time data to better understand the capacity that's available. But if you could just shed some light onto that.
Yes, absolutely, and thank you for the question, Madam Mayor. So what we do as part of the capacity allocation process and any development process, is there's a theoretical determination of how much wastewater will be used for development or per house. And that is what we use when we determine these numbers for approval. And then we track based on real-time flow data, what's coming into our water pollution control plant. We realize that against which developments are coming online. So we do record which developments are, the timing of which developments are coming, being connected to the system, and when we're receiving those treatments, and how that average works out in terms of their theoretical versus their actual. And we make those adjustments so that realizing that there is that potential safety factor in there or development discrepancy. So what we do on a quarterly basis is review which applications we still have theoretically versus how long they've been built, so that we're realizing that actual flow and make that adjustment. So that's what's occurred at the end of that second quarter, which allowed for an increase based on previous developments that have come online for a year and what their flows actually are.
Right, so it's not the capacity request of this applicant pool didn't really change. It was the internal assessment of how much capacity we have within the municipality, correct?
Correct, yes. The applications and their numbers didn't change. There wasn't a change there. It was what our actual values we were seeing at the wastewater treatment plant.
And with that in mind, during the next round, you would be in a similar situation of looking at real-time data and potentially freeing up some more capacity. Is that right?
That is our hope always, that each time we realize as new developments come on, it opens up a little bit of capacity. So we will review each intake, yeah.
And I know we've talked about Oxford Village Phase 2A, Pine Hill Carson. The disqualification, forgive me, did I miss it? Was it based upon a late submission?
That is correct. They submitted after the deadline. We didn't think that was fair to review it when they didn't submit on time. Could
you refresh me? Pine Hill Carson is?
It is the development, I guess, behind the Kemptville Mall. It's just off Pine Hill Road. Doesn't quite get to George Street, but right behind the mall there.
Okay. So in terms of triaging applications that didn't get capacity in this round, are they given priority consideration in another round? Right? Obviously, they've made that request. They have a rationale for those requests. They potentially don't succeed in this round, depending on the decision of council. How do you treat the applications that aren't granted capacity at this time?
Thank you for the question, Madam Mayor. Under the current rating system that we have, there isn't any mechanism in there to set a preferential adjustment for a development. They are informed that they didn't make this one. They see what comments we had. They are open to apply again, and they're scored against what other applications may come in that quarter. Or that now with the interim control bylaw, it's done semi-annually. So and during that semi-annual intake. So at this point, no, we can look at that as a potential item with the interim control bylaw review, but under the current one, we don't have that.
And can I ask, on the Pine Hill Carson application, I understand that understanding you have capacity is fundamental to proceeding with a development. So you may be at the design stage, you may be close to securing financing, and then you don't get the capacity, right? In perhaps the time or within the timeline that you expected. So where was Pine Hill Carson at? Maybe Ms. Martin, I don't know if you have a better understanding of where they're at in their planning. I just would appreciate some of that context in terms of how do we work with these developers that aren't being given capacity in this round, understanding that they certainly have invested time, expertise, resources, are likely paying taxes on those lands. So I'm convinced, of course, that they would want some assurance at some point so that they're not continually in abeyance. I understand missing a deadline, right? We get it, right? We set up parameters. It's up to staff to obviously ensure those parameters are upheld. But beyond that, I appreciate a little more insight into what the development community can expect when they aren't successful in securing that capacity.
Thank you, Your Worship. In regards to the Pine Hill Carson project, it's currently going through site plan control, and that process has not been finalized. We have yet to enter into an agreement for the site. What I can say in regards to developments, we do our best to work with developers, especially for larger projects that would require a greater amount of capacity to support their project, on looking at how we can phase the project from how many buildings, how many units are you constructing at first, to bring that number a little lower to align with the capacity that we may have left. Understanding those frustrations, that's why we did put the interim control bylaw in place, recognizing that we'd have to take a bit of a deeper look into every project and look at their merits and how they score against each other. We are reevaluating that scoring process, both Director Finley and I, and working with staff to see if there's a better way in how we score them or how projects move forward more meaningfully. We do our best to work with developers, understanding that some of them might be more at the beginning of the process to allow for zoning to proceed, and work through some of those early design pieces so that when we do have more capacity available, that they are in a position that they can apply. And as Director Finley has noted, we are moving to more of a biannual intake versus quarterly to allow for that recapturing of capacity as we realize projects building out, or as some projects don't proceed within that 1 year timeline, we do realize some of that capacity back into our allotment. We'll continue to communicate what values we do have left with developers and how we can, best make their projects move forward. We understand the frustration that they find themselves in, and staff are frustrated too, because we would love to be able to support every project that comes through the door where they are ready to move forward and they have the approvals in place. So to that end, we do encourage our development community to continue to reach out to the municipality and work with us on your projects to understand, what, especially from that financial viability piece, kind of what that break-even point is. I've had a lot of discussions with developers over, well, I can't just do one building, I need to do so many. What does that look like in the overall project? What does that capacity piece look like? And we certainly are open to discussing methodologies and how they calculate their theoretical flows, using real-world examples of other buildings they might have to try and find, a number that may work within what we have left.
Councillor Strachan?
Thank you, through Madam Mayor, to Director Martin. Regarding secondary units, how are those being assessed as with respect to the affordability component? I noticed that the ones on Asa Street, and they're probably inconsequential to this conversation because they're requesting the least amount at 3 cubic meters per day, I believe, but they were awarded additional points by staff because they have 50% of the development will comprise the secondary units. So could you provide a little bit more information as to how that's evaluated, please?
Yep, through your worship to Councillor Strachan. So staff have taken the approach, given our additional residential unit initiative we currently have in place for, especially under our housing accelerator funding, as viewing that as an affordable option for creating more housing. Understanding it is more difficult to have an influence over the rate that those units might be rented out, we inherently recognize that an individual that might be purchasing a unit with an additional residential unit will be using that to offset their cost of living, or it might be for an individual and their family to be able to age in place with family close by. So that's been kind of our historical approach to additional residential units. We see it as a bonus in creating, kind of that somewhat of missing middle housing within our communities where it's not overly intrusive, where we have the building stock to create it, and you're creating an additional rental opportunity within the community that didn't exist before. So that's how we've treated them in view of our capacity allocation. When we have these requests, we're starting to see them a little more with our zoning changes, where you get the semi-detached units with the additional residential units, creating more meaningful missing middle housing and opportunities for rental or an individual to offset their income by having an income unit within their property.
Thank you, through Madam Mayor. So just to continue with that, I mean, I agree that it does provide additional housing, rental options, but I think from what I'm hearing, what you're saying, there is no guarantee that they will be truly affordable, that we're at the mercy of whoever is controlling those rents, correct?
That is correct, through your worship, to Councillor Strachan, in that there are no agreements in place that would require them to be affordable. But we inherently just look at them as providing those additional opportunities for rental housing. It's the offsetting of rents. It's might be making the unit a little more affordable for the person that's owning the unit itself. Understanding that compared to our multi-residential units, where through the site plan control process, we have a stronger mechanism through the site plan agreement for requiring that level of affordability, and that those projects typically receive CMHC funding, which bind them to provide a level of affordability elsewhere. We see those additional residential units, again, as just providing, new opportunities for housing where they didn't exist before.
Through Madam Mayor to Director Martin, not to pick nits, but that is not the same as affordable housing, right? I think that we're saying that it offsets and it creates opportunities, and folks can offset their own rents, and it gives more rental options and so on. I agree with all of that, but I think that in this case in particular, again, inconsequential because of the amount that they're asking for allocation, it's noted under affordable housing, not what more they bring to the missing middle or anything like that. So I think the term of affordable housing is confusing enough and creates so many opportunities for misinterpretation that if we are in applying it to this case, then I think we should be calling it something other than affordable housing if we're going to be awarding them points, and it then dictates who gets allocation and so on. In this case, not the point, because it won't change anything for who else would be allowed in here, because the others are asking for so much more. But it could have an effect down the road if everybody was asking for the same amount. Thank you.
Any other comments, council colleagues? Councilor Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you to Director Martin. I just wanted to make sure I understood correctly. When you mentioned Oxford Village and the 10, I think you said 10% of the overall project would be deemed affordable. Is that, and that hasn't happened at this point in phase one? I'm just wanted to be sure, is it 10% of each phase or 10% when it's all built out and they're all finished?
Through your worship to Councillor Sullivan, in regards to the affordability piece, we're only speaking about phase two of the development. Phase one has already registered. The draft conditions were approved back in 2017, and there was no requirement for any affordability provisions. In regards to phase two, the capacity request is only for 34 units. The overall development includes multi-residential units, where I believe, and I may defer to our deputy director on this one, as he worked through the subdivision process on this file. They were going to include it in additional residential units in certain dwellings, of the detached dwellings, but they were also going to provide affordability in the multi-residential units that were being provided. The capacity being requested is not for the multi-residential buildings themselves. It's for the, I believe it's either the singles or the towns. I'd have to go back through the application, but it's not, the capacity request is only for a small portion of the development, not the entirety of phase two.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Just a couple of more questions on my end. What is the remaining capacity available this year? Is that understood yet? I know that you brought a bylaw forward that outlined what you anticipated or what staff would anticipate. Is the annual capacity that we have to allocate? And Mr. Finley, I really appreciate that you're refreshing my memory on this.
Thank you for the question, Madam Mayor. So, so right now, with with none of this approved, there's 86, I believe, 0.2 cubic meters available for this year, based on what we see right now. Depending on what gets approved here, that number will potentially reduce, and that's the number we'll look at for the next intake. In addition, unless we find efficiencies through other developments that have been realized. So the number we are working with right now is at 86 and change. Excuse me, 86.2 cubic meters per day. But that could change depending on the approvals.
And next year, do we refresh that capacity, or is this you're meeting out the remaining capacity per year? So do you have new capacity to introduce in the system as of 2026?
We will relook at our annual flows to see if there is more adjustment there available. So it'll depend on how those annual flows look at the end of the year. We'll do that reassessment, yes.
So when we say no today, based upon your comments, we could be saying no for quite a long time. Is that right?
Potentially. yes.
Potentially,
Yeah,
depending on what the year end looks like.
correct.
Okay. I mean, certainly I think what's important is clarity. And I know it's hard to provide that clarity, and it's a very fluid situation, no pun intended. But that being said, what I worry about is sort of stringing developers along if they have a hope or an expectation that in the next round they will succeed if that capacity doesn't exist, or the scoring criteria lead staff to not recommend that they receive a remaining allocation. So I would look forward to some additional considerations from staff in terms of, I know, Ms. Martin, you were suggesting perhaps a quarterly process or a reevaluation of some of the criteria, if I'm not mistaken. Did I hear you correctly?
Thank you, Worship. So currently, under the capacity allocation bylaw, we'd be doing quarterly intakes. We'd be moving to a biannual intake. What we're finding is with the quarterly intake, we're not able to realize if there is capacity returning to the system. It's not as meaningful because it's short bursts of time. If we extend out the timeline, projects that might not proceed, we might recapture some of that capacity as projects come online. We realize their actuals, we might gain a little more capacity there. And as Director Finley and his team do more I&I projects, we might see some capacity recapture just through those improvements. We will be looking at our scoring system. Under the capacity allocation bylaw, you couldn't request more than 40% of the remaining capacity, and 40% of a small numbers and even smaller numbers. We wanted to ensure that we weren't hindering projects that could receive capacity from moving forward based on those restrictions. So we'll be looking at our scoring systems. We're going to be communicating with the development community. We've had one meeting with them, and we anticipate, as we look at the reevaluation of how we score those applications coming forward, that we'd be communicating with them as well. And then ahead of any intakes, communicating what does our capacity outlook look like for the next intake. We've taken a commitment to being really proactive in working with our developers and providing that information in a timely manner to help assist them with their projects. But we do understand that we are constrained for the next year and a bit, 2 years, until such a time that the plant expansion is completed and we see that additional rated capacity come online.
Okay. I think I've exhausted my line of questioning. I look forward to additional information coming in December, and perhaps we can have some discussion in the meantime about, we'll say, strengthening the process. And I don't mean that disparagingly at all. I know how difficult these processes are and how carefully considered every application was. But again, just in the name of being as crystal clear as possible about the fate of those applications that don't get capacity, I would certainly appreciate some more conversation beyond, obviously what we're doing this evening. So with that in mind, I'm looking to Ms. Wood to advise on how we can proceed. I understand that you've broken out the submissions, or we can the recommended submissions, or we can approve them as just one motion. Is that
That is correct. The report has a motion that encompasses them all, and then we can agree to that, but we'll sign individual resolutions between us later.
Okay, okay. So colleagues, I look to you. The recommendation was provided to all of us, and that is that the Committee of Adjustment exempt Jack Joseph Subdivision Phase 1, 206 Joseph Street, 110 Elvira Street West, and 121 George Street West Phase A from bylaw 3525, granting conditional capacity for a total 73.40 cubic meters per day of average day flow at the water pollution control plant, and that the Committee of Adjustment exempt 853 Prescott Street from bylaw 3525, as the property will be developed on a septic system and does not require capacity at the municipal plant. I would like to note that the motion still refers to a total 73.40 cubic meters. Is that the total allocation? It is. Okay. Because we then refer to an increase to 86.2 cubic meters. Or am I mixing up the numbers? Maybe Mr. Finley, you can help me understand.
The 86.2 is what's total available. The 73 is what we're
I
granting
understand.
approval for.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you for that clarity. The other question that comes to mind before I ask for the mover is why would Prescott Street require that exemption? If in fact they're proceeding with a septic system, I wouldn't even think they would be on our radar for this particular bylaw, given that they're obviously not proceeding on service land. Mr. Finley or Ms. Martin?
Thank you, Your Worship. So the interim control bylaw applies to the urban service area, which is defined as Schedule B of our official plan. 853 Prescott Street falls within the urban service area, but is not located on municipal wastewater services. To that end, because it's in the schedule, it's within that map, we have to exempt it, even though it's being developed on private servicing. So this one, we missed when we did the original bylaw. So bringing it to the committee to exempt it from the bylaw so it can get a building permit. That's kind of the mechanism there. We will potentially have these one-offs because we have small pockets within our urban service area where there are no municipal services. So they too would have to come forward for an exemption because, and staff are recommending support of that because there's no requirement. In reading the, sorry, I just wanted to address this, the resolution, the recommendation, we are missing 206 Asa Street. It's listed as 206 Joseph Street, so that needs to be corrected.
I understand. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I just want to ensure because I don't want there to be any ambiguity with staff or if there's any questions over what's being exempted. I believe, I'm just reading through it really quickly because we do have the individual ones here to ensure that the street names are. So that should be 206 Asa Street.
Okay. So then everything that I've just read, as per the recommendation, stands with the exception that instead of 206 Joseph, we're speaking of 206 Asa Street. And Ms. Wood, you're going to capture that in the motion that we'll now consider. Should it be moved and seconded? So I'll look for a council colleague to move and second. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I'll move, but I would like to draw people's attention to the fact that in the report, there are 4 recommendations, only one of which is recommended, and that's the recommendation I'm supporting. But the 4th is, it's interesting, we could not approve any of the applicants and just wait for the next intake, which is...
I am confused. So you're suggesting... So
no,
should
I'm not
we-
suggesting anything, I'm just commenting. I will move the recommendation that you just read out.
And
Happy
certainly
to
we
do
could
it.
treat each of the exemptions individually, if that's simpler for council colleagues, or we can treat them together. Am I hearing you say you're not in favor of one of the
No,
recommendations?
No, I'm just commenting on the fact that the 4th recommendation, which isn't recommended, the 4th option is to decline all 4. But I don't think the community or the development community would like to see that happen.
And where are you finding the recommendation to decline all applications?
In the report.
Ms. Martin, maybe you can just speak to the report. I believe you might have generated it, or Mr. Finley?
Yes, I can speak to that, Madam Mayor. So for the committee's review, we wanted to ensure different options or alternatives are available. So there is the option to award as we recommended. There's an option to not approve any of the capacity, and again, then the developers would have to potentially reapply or look at alternatives. We did also note that it could amend the recommendation as well. So it was just options being provided for consideration.
I've caught up now. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so I think we have a motion on the table. Ms. Wood is going to make sure it's captured precisely as per the recommended allocations. And I'm looking for a mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor, did you move it? And do we have a seconder? I'm looking for a seconder. Okay, Councillor Sullivan, thank you. So any final comments or questions in regards to this matter? I'm not seeing anything, so I'll call the vote. All in favor, please. Okay, we have majority. We have a majority of council, so then that carries. Thank you very much. And Ms. Wood, if you could just walk me through the end of the meeting, I would appreciate it. Is it just adjournment at this time? We're down to adjournment. Okay. All right. So do we need a motion to adjourn? Yes. So for our Committee of Adjustment meeting, we're going to move to adjourn at 7:35. Councillor Strachan, Councillor Wilson, thank you. We are moving to adjourn at 7:35. I'll call the question. All in favor? Great. And colleagues, we're going to take 5 minutes to regroup so that we can start our council meeting. Thank you. Okay, council colleagues, I think we're ready to reconvene. We're now moving into our council meeting. I want to say we're beginning at 7 p.m., but that is not true. We are convening this meeting now at 7:51 p.m., so we'll see how it goes. Again, as per the custom in North Grenville, I'll invite a council colleague to read the land acknowledgement. Who would like to do that? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. The municipality of North Grenville acknowledges that the municipality operates on the land, on the territory of the Anishinaabe. We recognize all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples who now call North Grenville their home. We respect and support the need for cultivating a strong relationship, and we commit to Indigenous-informed decision-making to foster the path towards reconciliation.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a couple of quick notes before we begin. I think everyone is abundantly aware of the County Road 43 expansion project and the stage we're at in this moment, which is the major reconfiguration and construction of the roundabout at 43 and 44. So as I know, many experienced today, parts of that intersection were closed today, but we're at this stage expecting the soon-to-be roundabout at the 43-44 intersection to be fully functional by Friday. So we want to thank Tomlinson and all of the tradesmen and women and construction crews who have been out there in incredibly hot weather for their endurance and their commitment. And yesterday I had unexpectedly the opportunity to have a quick conversation with one of the flag men. And as I shared on social media, he said that this was the nicest community he had ever worked in. And he noted that in many other communities where he's involved in major construction projects for Tomlinson, he's regularly yelled at. People are incredibly impatient, and he said he had been treated with nothing but kindness in this community. So I know that sometimes on social media, it feels like people are very, very frustrated, but I think the day-to-day behavior of most of our residents in regards to enduring what is a multi-year, extensive, inconvenient construction and rehabilitation project. I think the behavior of this community has been largely quite impressive. And my flagman with whom I spoke yesterday said, the two people who did yell at me, Nancy, they were not from North Grenville. So he said they were from out of town. I knew they were from out of town. So anyway, it was a nice anecdote to be able to share because we know that it's taken all hands and a lot of graciousness on the part of the community to get through this together. Just three other things very quickly. Of course, we were able to receive the Communities in Bloom judges for the third year in a row. Last evening, they've been here over the last 2 days, and I know there's been a very dedicated municipal team really leading the charge alongside many, many volunteers, community organizations, and our Old Town BIA. So we look forward to the results that will be shared in due time from our esteemed judges. Also, as I know most would be aware by now, there's a total burn ban in effect. We know that this is counties wide, and clearly we are appealing to all residents to use extreme caution, given that the fire risk in the community remains very elevated. Apart from that, we've got the South Branch Serenade tomorrow, as has been the case every Thursday evening throughout the summer, and the long-awaited Kentville Youth Centre annual book fair is happening Friday through Sunday, and equally as exciting on Sunday as well, we'll have the first ever Red Shoe Triathlon is coming to us. This is being hosted by the Rural Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder Network, which is a vital network for families in Eastern Ontario. They've received some incredible Trillium Funding to support the growth of their organization. They have a walk in Smith Falls, and they've decided to host the first, and we hope a reoccurring annual Red Shoe Triathlon in Kemptville this Sunday. I have signed up for the Super Sprint Tri. It's been a while since I've done a triathlon, but I look forward to seeing lots of community members and professional triathletes coming to check out the course. So with all of that said, I'll look for the adoption. Oh, did we read the land acknowledgement? Yes, we did. Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll look for the adoption of the agenda, and that is that the agenda for the regular meeting of council on August 13th, 2025 be approved as presented. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Wilson, any comments or questions on the agenda as presented? We do have one amendment, and that is in regards to a request to declare August as Kayaking for Cancer Month. We know that the Kayaking for Cancer group was just in Merrickville. Every year they do a kayaking endeavor from Kingston all the way to Ottawa. I learned just a couple of days ago that the Mayor of Ottawa declared, I think next Wednesday or August, I want to say 16th, or their arrival in Ottawa next week as a day in Ottawa. So it's Kayaking for Cancer Day in the city of Ottawa. So the Mayor of Ottawa has done that in recognition of the considerable efforts this local group have undertaken to raise funds for cancer. So we thought it fitting to look at declaring August as Kayaking for Cancer Month. As a way here in North Grenville to also recognize their efforts. So that is under the agenda, section G1, for your consideration, and we can talk more about it. But that's the rationale to include it on the agenda this evening. So I'll be looking then for a mover and a seconder for an amended agenda. And Deputy Mayor and Councillor Wilson, do I have your indulgence for the amended agenda? Thank you. All right, I'll call the question on that. All in favor? Thank you. That carries. Next is our declarations of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. And I'll just look for council colleagues to declare any perceived or real financial benefit or loss deriving from tonight's meeting. Not seeing any declarations. We'll move on, and we do have a public meeting. It's in regards to ZBA 0825. And Ms. Martin, I will move us into the public meeting, and then you'll do your presentation. Is that right? Oh, Mr. Mosher, okay. So we're going to invite Mr. Mosher for you to provide your presentation at the present time? Okay.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just get started into it. So the subject of this application is a request to rezone 215 Sanders Street, 107 Oxford Street East, and 108 Maley Street from residential third density and downtown commercial to downtown commercial with an exception zone and residential third density with exception zones. So the effect of this application, it is largely administrative in nature, but it is to vary zone provisions due to a redistribution of lot boundaries following an inadvertent merger. No new uses are going to be proposed, and I'm very pleased to report that this property has full capacity allocation. We can go to the next slide. So the subject property is known as the Sanders Mall, the Reina Mall from past. You may be familiar with it. It's located as a through lot. It's got frontage on Oxford Street East, and then it backs onto Maley Street, and it also has an exterior side yard onto Sanders Street. It's currently has this split zoning of downtown commercial C1 on the Maley Street and Sanders Street portions, and it's got an R3 zoning on the Oxford Street, 107 Oxford Street. If we can go to the next slide, this shows the official plan designations. It is a little bit grainy, but you can just see it is within that downtown commercial core from a land use designation perspective. If we could go to the next slide, please. So The three properties, the home at 108 Maley Street, which you can see at the top of this image in green, where it says proposed severance and it shows 409 meters squared, as well as the proposed severance on Oxford Street East shows again this greenish little home with 244 meters squared. So these properties have merged with 215. Sometimes this happens just depending on who's the owner of particular pieces of land. For a very long time, this property has operated as one property. You can see from the aerial photo that's kind of shown underneath the lines on the map that the parking exists in this kind of configuration. It goes in and around and behind some of the houses, and you can clearly see the path of travel where people are coming and going. So it's kind of been operating like this for quite some time. So there are applications for consent to sever under the Planning Act to formally separate the lots, and they would be separated as shown on this concept plan, with the new lot boundary for 108 Maley Street being less than it is currently, as well as the new lot boundary for 107 Oxford Street East being less than it is currently. And when you're changing lot boundaries, typically what happens is you have a zoning bylaw, which is a little bit rigid in its application, and the standards apply for setbacks from residences to commercial spaces and things like that. And that's the case here. And so because of the redistribution of the lot boundaries, there are some variances from the zone bylaw that are required and that have been requested by the applicant. Staff's reviewed the requested variances, and we proposed a couple alternatives, some counters to the applicant via their agent, and I'm pleased to report that there's general acceptance of what staff is proposing. We can go to the next slide, please. So this application is consistent with the provincial planning statement. This property is in a location that it has this mixed use. It's got these 23 apartments above the ground floor commercial. It's very appropriate for downtown commercial core. It continues to optimize land use patterns. This development will redistribute those. That makes more logical sense so that the homes are separate from the commercial entity itself, and that will continue to promote economic development, competitiveness, and opportunities to diversify the economic base of North Grenville. We could go to the next one. Again, just more of the provincial planning statement. This will help North Grenville. It has helped North Grenville to achieve our intensification targets. There's infrastructure that's efficient and that can accommodate the needs of this property. The infrastructure is effective, efficient, and there's provision for emergency services. In reviewing this application, fire trucks, emergency vehicles can access the property from 3 streets, so that's very good. Through some proposals or counter proposals from staff, there will be the ability to just provide a little bit more green space where certain parking lots are adjacent to streets where that's appropriate. And then this development, of course, continues to protect corridors, rights of way, and then there are plans for infrastructure that can be accommodated and which are sustained on the resources upon which they rely. If we go to the next slide, this application is also consistent with the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville's official plan. It is within their settlement area. This is continuing to help support redevelopment of this site. It maintains and enhances the downtown and main streets, and it encourages cost-effective development patterns that minimize land consumption and reduce servicing costs. When we look at North Grenville's official plan, this is helping to further the vision of the downtown commercial core. It's supporting this area, continuing to support this area as the primary multifunctional activity center and embracing a flexible approach to development. I'll talk about that a little bit more in the zoning details. This continues to encourage growth in a residential population through this mixed-use development and as an adjacent gateway area through renovation and conversion. And it does encourage consolidation and enhancement of compact, pedestrian-oriented shopping types of areas, which can enhance the attractiveness of the downtown core. So for 215 Sanders Street, the requests were made to waive requirements for fencing and landscaping requirements where commercial zones abut a residential zone. So for reference, normally there would be a 1.5 meter wooden fence, 1.5 meter high, and 3 meters of open space. So when we look at the concept plan for this proposal, we can see that it's just not feasible given current parking configurations and lot lines and how they're going to be adjusted to fully meet those standards. Also, there's this interesting thing that happens when you're on the property in that you sort of you see the rear of the homes, and it's not like blocked off by the fences. It's much more open and contiguous, and it's like a better mix and feel for the area. And if there's a requirement now to add a wooden fence as a result of this development, it kind of really does block it off and makes things that are just a little bit more disjointed than they otherwise could be. The other part is this 3-meter open space buffer. Well, clearly that's not able to be achieved, but staff has asked and negotiated with the developer that on the south side of Maley Street, there'd be at least half a meter of open space. And on the north side of the residential properties on Oxford Street, there'd be at least a half a meter. For reference, that's just about 2 feet. And then everywhere else where it abuts residential, that it would be at least 1 meter. So that would be kind of on the far eastern side. Some of the driveways which currently exist and have existed are too close for the zoning bylaws current standards. So it's recommended that that be waived because it's an existing condition and we're not trying to impose new standard here. There was a request to require, to waive the requirement for driveways and parking surfaces to be surfaced with asphalt or other similar hard surfaces. So this development is subject to site plan control. It's an older agreement, and it's evolved over the years, but at present, it seems that the older standards for site plan would have required some sort of paved surfaces, but that's not been implemented in effect. So there was this request to waive it, but staff thinks this is actually an opportunity to remove the gravel from this area to actually do the pavement. And that will require a site plan agreement amendment with the developer. As we understand it, they're open to this process, and that would require stormwater management controls and other types of drawings just to show how all of that will work. We talked a little bit the visual barrier. We have a second standard within the zone bylaw as it is. And then there is an existing accessory structure on the downtown commercial property that's intended to stay. It's about 1 meter from the interior side yard, so there's a request to go from 1.2 meters to 1 meter to recognize that existing structure. Other amendments that are being requested, if we go to the next slide, for the residential properties now. So for Maley Street, the minimum lot area is 465 meters squared. With this redistributed lot boundary, it would be 400 meters squared. And there's existing structures that, because you're going to have less lot area, and there was already existing structures that exceeded lot coverage from an accessory structure perspective, you will be at an increase of lot coverage. So that is recommended to be varied as well. When it comes to 107 Oxford Street East, a similar thing. You're going to have a reduced lot area, so down to 240 meters squared from 465. And then there's not as much in terms of buildings and structures, but there would be a need to increase lot coverage from 30% to 35% if those boundaries make a lesser lot area. We did receive a letter of no objection from Enbridge Gas, noting the right to reserve, the right to amend or remove development conditions, and we received a letter of no objection from RBCA. Internally, we received an email of no comment from Bylaw Services. And so staff does recommend that the subject application and the zoning amendments be approved. I know yesterday council received a revised zoning bylaw amendment. We did receive some comments on even that revised bylaw, and we've submitted to the clerk's office a third revised bylaw. And that speaks to just clarifying this open space requirements in and around the rear of Maley Street and the north side of Oxford Street East residential properties. And then also notes that there isn't a requirement for a solid board fence. I think it might be helpful if we finish the report, if we just go back to slide number 5, which shows the proposed layout, just so that we can keep this up here in case there's any questions. And I do note that the applicant and agent are here tonight and can answer questions if there are any. It's largely administrative, but it feels like that's a lot that I've just given you. So if there's any questions, please let me know.
Colleagues, I did not read the public meeting procedure because I was so eager to hear from Mr. Mosher, so I'll just read the mandated script so that we're fully in the public meeting, if you don't mind. Council will now hold a public meeting to consider the application for lands located at 215 Sanders Street, 108 Melly Street, and 107 Oxford Street East, Plan 11, former town of Kemptville, now the municipality of North Grenville. The effect of this application, as we are now very clear, would be to ensure zones are consistent with the intended uses of the property following separation due to an inadvertent merger. I must advise that this meeting is your opportunity to voice any objections or concerns you may have with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. If an appellant does not provide oral or written submissions at this public meeting or before council adopts the proposed amendment, the Ontario Lands Tribunal may refuse to consider their objections. Any persons who wish further notice of council's decision should obviously share their name and address with our planner or deputy planner, obviously following this meeting. Are there people here for this public meeting, perchance? Okay, thank you. And you would be the applicant and the applicant's representative, is that right? Okay, excellent. Anyone else? Okay. So now we'll return back to Mr. Mosher's report, and I'll open it up to council for any comments or questions. Councilor Strachian?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Mr. Mosher. I'm just wondering, regarding the parking layout that you have on this map, if you spend any time there, you know that's not how people park. So I'm just wondering, for the area that's in behind the building that exits out onto Oxford Street, is the intent to create that kind of parking layout, or is that simply a nice idea for this image?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. For the purpose of the zone amendment, it is a nice image. Obviously, we would go through the site plan process with the applicant, and then it may not ultimately look like this. But this is meant to give an idea of how the site could look and function over time. And not all some of the conversations we've had with the agent is like, there are pinch points for some of the parking. Again, we get into that narrow parking spaces adjacent residential, and there's just some details that'll need to be worked out and massaged, so it may not look as it looks here.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you. I have a number of questions, and hopefully Deputy Director Mosher can answer them. If not, maybe the applicant can. Are they, with this severances, first question is, does Mr. Farrell plan to develop the two severed properties in any way or sell them? That would be a question for when he comes down, if he chooses to. Secondly, are there new parking spaces created? There are.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So no new parking is proposed at this time with the zone change that's requested, but those details would be established through the forthcoming site plan control agreement process.
Okay, great. Those are my two questions.
Okay, other council colleagues? No? And I just want to be clear, because there's an existing multi-residential commercial building. Is this a proposal for additional residential units, or it's simply to rezone what exists, correct? So it's the latter?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So it's the result of this application is based on the inadvertent mergers and trying to redistribute the lot lines. There's no plans to do any new development at this point in time. All major zone categories remain the same. The commercial site will be C1. The residential properties will be residential third density. Yes, so those will be formally separated. So there's it's largely administrative in nature because of the technical lines and where they will go, and setbacks and open space provisions and requirements for open space adjacent parking. So staff's understanding, no new uses are proposed at this time.
And I didn't ask because I would object to that. I was just curious if I had it clear in my mind what the intent of the rezoning was, and if it created that opportunity, which would be obviously interesting. I echo the comments that the building, the main building, if you will, where the commercial and multi-residential units are, is a great addition to the downtown, and certainly provides some valuable housing and commercial space that's very well utilized. It certainly appears from my perspective in our downtown. So thank you. So if, yes, Deputy Mayor, thank you. Please raise your hands. I
Yep.
don't want to
Okay.
circumvent discussion.
All right. Question to you, Mr. Mosher. The property that has been reduced from 400 square meters to 240, does that in effect sterilize that property in terms of lot coverage? I mean, if Mr. Farrell decides to develop that, say, as a multi-unit residence, I mean, basically, is there enough space there, given how much lot coverage it might require? Can you hazard a guess on that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, so this application and the resulting zone amendment would not sterilize it in any way, shape, or form. In fact, our zone bylaw, in the way that it's worded, if somebody wanted to do additional residential units, either by expanding the building or doing a detached one, are exempt from lot coverage, as long as they can meet lot grading and drainage. So there is certainly still options for the property, even at a reduced lot area.
Okay. Anything else in regards to questions of Mr. Mosher from council? All right. Does the applicant or their representative wish to speak, or are you satisfied with the discussion? Should you wish to speak, you would have to come to the mic. I apologize. Thank you. Often there are two chairs. We don't know what happens. More staff. Welcome, Mr. Farrell. Yeah. Yep, just, I think a red button will come on. Far right, I'm told. For the public record, we typically need, oh, just, you'll have to hang on, just one sec. They're going to lend you one of theirs. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to answer John's questions. So our intent is not, we're intending to sell the two lots, to sever and sell. And so we're not intending to do anything with them other than sell them.
Yeah, I guess that was the intent of my second question, but whether, to Mr. Mosher, whether in selling the properties, if a new property owner wanted to build something, would he be able to build? Because we're all about intensifying residential in the downtown core, which is good for your building, obviously, the more on the commercial floor. So thanks. Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions or comments for the applicant? Not seeing any? Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak to the application? I'm not seeing anyone, so I think we can now close the public meeting. Thank you, Mr. Mosher, for lending your mic. And then I'll move to the recommendation, council colleagues, and that is that council approve bylaw 6625 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 5012 as amended to amend the zoning at 215 Sanders Street, 107 Oxford Street East, and 108 Maley Street, as per the recommendation provided by staff. I think it's been abundantly explained and very well articulated by Mr. Mosher. So I'll just look for a mover and a seconder for consideration of the bylaw. Thank you. Councillor Wilson. Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Any last comments or considerations? If there are none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? All right, thank you. And our former clerk, who was in the room a little while ago, said, Mayor, exercise your vote. So I've received competing advice on whether or not I vote as a member of council. At county councils, we don't typically, as chairs, cast our vote. But at municipal council, it had been past practice, then it was suspended, but I'm getting back into the habit of casting a vote. So, and we've received advice to that end, I'd like to emphasize, from legal experts in the municipal realm. So we're going to move on to our consent agenda. Oh, that's right. Yes, thank you. Thank you. From the comments I made earlier, I'd like to ask council for their consideration of declaring the month of August as Kayaking for Cancer Month in recognition of the formidable local fundraising efforts of the Kayaking for Cancer group that I think is celebrating, is it 25 years? Is it 25 years? That's right. So we know that they're trying to cross the $1 million fundraising mark for this 25th year. As I understand it from our staff appreciation event earlier this summer, we have a member of our staff who's actually participating and in the group this year. One of our water and wastewater operators. It's her first year, and she was just compelled to join the group. I don't think has done an extended kayaking expedition up to now, but was really excited to do so. And we know Kevin Dion and some of the others who have been deeply, deeply involved. Of course, Kayaking for Cancer has had longstanding support from some of our local businesses, including the Independent, B&H, On It Goes, so Pirate Cove Marina, Hearst Marina. So I look to my council colleagues to join me in considering the declaration of August as Kayaking for Cancer Month. And I'd welcome a mover and a seconder if you're inclined to support it. So Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Wilson, thank you. Any comments or questions?
I believe they'll be at Lock 17 tomorrow. Is that right, Councillor Wilson? And then Pirates Cove. So if people want to come by and cheer them on, those are two stops in North Grenville they'll be making.
Indeed.
Thanks.
Okay, good. So we have a mover and seconder. You've got it? All right. And I will then call the question then. All in favor? Thank you. And we look forward to seeing the group again tomorrow, as Deputy Mayor noted. Thank you to Ms. McKenna for reminding me. We'll now move on to items under the consent agenda. The following consent agenda items are being recommended. Under consent, municipal officers update, minutes of previous meetings, advisory committee meeting minutes, and local board meeting minutes. Does any member wish to remove an item from the consent agenda?
The municipal officers update?
Yes, okay, thank you. And I would like to remove the minutes of previous meetings. So colleagues, I think as you've noted, there's a very lengthy list of minutes on the agenda. We appreciate that the clerk's office was likely trying to catch up and get us fully up to date on the approval of our minutes. So there's many, many sets of minutes, and we appreciate all the hard work that went into preparing those. But at this point, I'd just like to pull the minutes of previous meetings just to note a couple of items in regards to a couple of sets of those minutes. So with that, I will then ask for consideration of the adoption of an amended consent agenda, and I'll look to a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Strachan, thank you. Deputy Mayor, thank you. And I'll call the vote. All in favor? Thank you. So in regards to municipal officers update, I know that I would like to see part or all of this either deferred or modified, and I know we've had that discussion with Ms. Dunlop. So I know, Mr. Barbaro, you're here to speak to aspects of the report. Ms. Dunlop will receive Mr. Barbaro's report and go from there.
If I may, Your Worship.
Yes.
Mr. Baribeau is here to answer any questions. I know the concern, we did have one concern that was raised at an earlier time. I did provide some supplementary information, which Mr. Baribeau either can go over or I can, in regards to the two selected applicants that we have for the screening officers for the AMPS program. But I am at your mercy.
Well, Mr. Baribeau, do you want to walk us through? Did you have our presentation prepared?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have a presentation prepared, but I do have the reports here with me and also some notes.
Okay. So maybe you could simply walk us through where we're at in terms of the proposed additions, changes, what have you.
Of course. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And through you, as you're aware, the municipality adopted the AMPS program, or the AMPS bylaw, back in January 2nd, 2025. That was enacted. We're approximately 8 months in, and that bylaw provided more an efficient and accessible alternative to the traditional court-based process for enforcing designated bylaws. By providing local adjudication framework, the system promotes compliance, enhances accessibility for residents, and reduces reliance on the provincial court system. So at the time of the implementation, council appointed 3 screening officers and a hearing officer to manage the penalty notices and respond to requests for screenings. However, since this implementation, the volume of screening requests has exceeded initial projections. In combination with recent changes in staffing, this has impacted the availability of screening officers. As a result, additional appointments are required to maintain the effectiveness, timeliness, and fairness of the program. Municipal staff have identified Ashley Cuthbert and Laura Valcourt as suitable candidates based on their their availability, training capacity, and familiarity with the municipal enforcement procedures. They are also, I should point out, that they're outside of the bylaw department. In addition, Rachel Jansen, our previous hearing officer, has recently stepped down, which then required some research into locating suitable candidates. We contacted other municipalities to see who they were utilizing, and a candidate named Stéphane Noël is highly qualified replacement. He is a retired police officer, currently serving as a hearing officer for multiple municipalities across Eastern Ontario, and he holds a certificate in adjudication for administrative agencies, boards, tribunals from Society of Ontario, adjudicators, and regulators. He's also a member of good standing. Furthermore, Mr. Noël maintains professional insurance to support his adjudicative responsibilities. His appointment will ensure the municipality continues to provide impartial and effective second-level review process under AMPS. And it's important to note that there's a difference between the screening officers and the hearing officers. Council may remember from the initial reports back in 2024, kind of explaining the differences between the screening officers and the hearing officers. The screening officers are more of a first point of contact with individuals disputing their penalty notices. They are there to answer any questions, explaining the bylaw, looking for initial errors on the ticket. If there's any clear errors in an issuance, they have the ability under the bylaw to either cancel, reduce, or extend the timelines. Both the hearing officers and the screening officers are quite, the bylaw itself provides the abilities of what they can do. It's black and white in the bylaw. So both the screening officers and the hearing officers have that responsibility to follow the bylaw and the policies. The hearing officer is more of a formal review where witnesses, complainants, all the evidence is brought forward during a formal procedure. While the screening officer is just a first point of contact to try to streamline processes. Most of the time, people just want to be heard and want to understand the bylaw. They don't understand why they got a penalty notice, and that is to explain to them. It provides that first point of contact, and 99% of the time, those matters are resolved at that time. If a defendant or an individual who received a penalty notice wishes to continue to contest, they are adamant that they're innocent or there was an error in issuance, they can proceed to a hearing officer or the hearing stage. At that stage, the formal process takes place where the evidence is provided and the third-party adjudicator with the training, with the expertise, makes a judgment. And so all those steps, of course, are on the website. The screening officer provides that information to them as well. It's all outlined, it's in the bylaw, and that's kind of the process forward, outside of the POA, which was our previous processes.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Baribeau, for that explanation. And for sure, it's a well-thought-out process, and it's backed up by training, as you suggest. I just feel a little uncomfortable with having municipal staff once again be in the front lines, the first point of contact, because I don't know anyone who would, people don't hesitate in challenging tickets. You know, they were late for an appointment, blah, blah, blah. And I just think for them to, I think it'd be much better to draw from the general public. So, you know, a third party rather than a municipal employee to be those screening officers. And also they would be their colleagues in the bylaw department, you know, will have processed the ticket, even though with the speed cameras it's automatic, and et cetera. But I just think it puts them in a very uncomfortable position. So I'm not really comfortable drawing from staff to be screening officers, and I wondered if we couldn't go out to the general public and ask for volunteers, or if it's a paid position, like per case, maybe it's done on that basis. But I just feel uncomfortable with that. That's why I pulled it for discussion.
Maybe one of my questions is the role of the screening officer, and I appreciate the additional information and articulation of the role of a screening officer. And this arises because I did have a communication from a resident, right, who, of course, as we know, this is a new system for North Granville. It's inevitable that on occasion, if people feel like they have not been done justice through this process or would like reconsideration of a penalty, that they might appeal to my office. We've made it abundantly clear that we have no role in this process, but nonetheless, the circumstances are outlined for me. So one of the questions that comes up or came up in the recent correspondence that my office received was whether, at what point can a resident activate the hearing? So I know you spoke to it. I'm a little bit confused about making determinations to reduce, affirm, or cancel a penalty in limited circumstances. I'm not sure that this resident, and again, I only have the benefit of the correspondence I've received, understood her capacity to potentially get to the hearing stage. And maybe you could help us understand as a council, does every resident who would have received a penalty, or I guess property owner, or because commercial business owners could also be in receipt, right, of an AMP fine? Is that the case?
If I may, Madam Mayor, any individual in the province or anybody visiting the municipality could, in theory, receive a penalty notice, correct?
So do those individuals have an inherent right to go to the hearing stage? So if they want, to your point, contest the validity of the ticket, is the screening officer there to articulate options and help them get to the hearing officer who has that additional, I guess, leeway to reconsider the issuance of the ticket or the fine attached to the ticket? That's where I have some confusion.
If I may, Madam Mayor. So as it's a new program. We started in January, and we have improved the program. We are constantly revamping things a little bit, improving the website, improving forms. And as part of that process, we identified a need for making sure that the defendants were reviewing the policy, reviewing the bylaws, because everything in those bylaws and policies are actually mentioned, like the screening phase, the hearing phase, all that is mentioned in the bylaw. And so to make sure that the defendants or individuals debating on contesting or disputing their penalty notice is making sure that they follow the rules and follow the processes, and by reading the bylaw. At any point it occurs, we do get communication from members of the public, and we will answer that as well. So then that is also one of the roles of the screening officer. Once at the first step is once they initiate that first step to screening, the screening officer also helps educate on the processes to go to the hearing phase if they're still not happy, I guess you can say, or are they still willing to dispute their penalty notice?
Right. So, from that answer, am I to understand that if someone wants to contest their ticket, right, as they would have through the provincial offenses system, whereby they can have their day in court, right, and contest the validity of a ticket, no matter what the interactions are with the screening officer in terms of explaining the rationale and the system we have here in North Grenville, they can activate the request for a hearing officer, because this is where I think the resident that I was hearing from experienced some confusion. And as a consequence, her fine may have doubled because she didn't pay it in a certain period of time and incurred a higher fine, perhaps because of some confusion, maybe on her end. I have no idea how the confusion was generated. So I would like to better understand the activation of the hearing officer stage.
If I may, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
So for clarification, in regards to that point, any individual can go to the hearing phase or the hearing view steps as long as they follow the procedures in the bylaw that council in the municipality put forward. And one of those steps is that they would have to go to the screening review phase, go through that process. They would be issued a notice of decision. At that point, they have a certain time frame where they have to decide if they're going to contest that to the hearing review stage. If they fail to proceed and provide notice that they're going to the hearing stage, the ticket is affirmed, it's closed, the matter is resolved. And that in some cases could occur if they haven't decided in time. Those notifications are outlined in the forms, they're discussed at the screening review stage, they are in the bylaw, they're also on the website. Is it a perfect system? I don't think there's such a thing. There's always room for improvement. Even the Provincial Offences Act court system is not perfect. We as staff we have to follow the procedures and bylaws to guide us, and that's black and white, and that's what we follow when we go through the steps, and that is what we do.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, to Mr. Baribeau. So is it possible for a screening officer's evaluation of the circumstances around a ticket to deny a resident a hearing?
Screening officers, through you, Madam Mayor, a screening officer cannot deny. It would have to be, there's a notice of decision that the screening officer would submit. That screening decision comes back to my office. There's processes involved. The denial is if under the bylaw, if somebody fails to show up to an appointment, for example, they relinquish their rights to go to the hearing phase. They didn't follow proper procedure. And that would be similar to different procedures at different court processes as well. They have to follow certain procedures, timelines. And so, for example, if somebody failed to show up to their meeting, they would relinquish that right to go to the hearing phase.
So if at the screening phase, the screening officers write for all intents and purposes, a negative review saying this is not a valid circumstance to progress to the hearing stage, does that deep six it? Or, I mean, it seems to me that the screening officers, from what I understand, and maybe you can correct me, are either going to advance the file or park the file, saying, no, I'm not going to recommend this for a hearing.
Through you, Madam Mayor, that is not the way it works. So the screening officer would review the matter based on the policy bylaw. If they decide to affirm the ticket and say, unfortunately, you haven't proven undue hardship, so it can't be reduced, it can't be extended, there's no errors or omissions on the ticket is affirmed. They don't make any decision on the process going forward afterwards. That is a policy based on the bylaw itself that decides that. Anyone who attended their meeting, followed proper process, will have a right to appeal it to the hearing level.
Deputy Mayor, does that alleviate any of your concerns? I think it's helpful to better understand the role of the screening officer.
Not really. It doesn't really alleviate my concerns of having municipal staff basically in the front lines making that determination. Whether the public understands the process or not, it still seems like, a resident would assume that this is where I have to make my case, and this person the very first person I'm talking to is going to make a determination whether I get a hearing or not. Even though it's explained on the website and I assume in filing an appeal, it's there in language, but it doesn't. No, to answer your question, no, it doesn't.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for articulating your concerns. At this stage, I think I look to Ms. Dunlop or Mr. Baribeau on how to proceed. We have some recommendations before us. I understand that at this point, we only have one hearing officer, and that person is no longer in a position to continue to serve. Is that right?
That's correct. We do require a hearing officer, and Mr. Noel can, based on my communication, it appears he can probably start in early September.
I see. And do we have existing screening officers? We had initially.
We had three
right?
initially. We still have three, but due to workload, we have two that are capable of reviewing files at this moment.
So any change in approach and how the municipality might identify screening officers in the future would need some additional considerations by staff, correct?
If I may, Your Worship, should, based on the conversation that's been held around this table this evening, the hearing officer is something that yes, the hearing officer is something that we need to move forward with and would appreciate direction from council on that. In regards to the screening officers, it is 2 additional municipal staff, and if it is the will of council to go outside of municipal staff, additional resources, financial resources would be required, and staff could accept that direction from council if they wish us to start looking down that path. It's not one that we have reviewed at this point in time, and it's not one that I believe is a familiar path with other AMPS programs that are currently in place. But again, the AMPS program from lower tier municipalities is something newer to smaller municipalities. So it is a learning curve. As you said, we're currently adapting, adjusting efficiencies, et cetera, within the program. We're learning on a daily basis. So we would look to that direction from council.
So maybe given that we already have 3 municipal staff named, right, and you're looking to supplement that list, we should at least ask for council's consideration of those this evening. And perhaps, Ms. Dunlop, you can work with Mr. Baribeau on an alternative approach should council wish to consider it down the road. I hear that with workloads, the value of additional screening officers is certainly there, so we don't want to impede the processes that allow people to at least activate, right, their rights under the AMP system. So I can appreciate the need to supplement, right, the current roster of screening officers with a couple of other ones. And certainly I just want to note my brief interactions on this file were just prompting some questions that that I felt were legitimate to ask this evening, so I could better understand that distinction between screening and hearing. And Mr. Baribeau, you've helped to resolve some of the lingering inquiries that I had. Councillor Strakian.
Thank you. Through Madam Mayor to Mr. Baribeau, how often are screening officers contacted, or how often are people coming in to have conversations with them?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Madam Mayor. It varies depending on seasons because of the winter enforcement parking. Our busy season was from January to approximately April. At this moment, our screening officers are, I believe, are reviewing 2 screenings per week on average, which during the busy seasons would probably be more like 4 to 5. Again, that's just an estimate without having the numbers in front of me. Each file requires a review and consideration, sitting down with the defendant, either in person, virtually. I couldn't really speak to the amount of time per case.
If I may add to that, Madam Mayor, I think to the Deputy Mayor's point, hiring outside of staff would could make that accessibility less accessible. If you have somebody that's not in the municipal building available at any time to be contacted. So I'd have concerns about making the process more cumbersome by hiring outside. And I also have concerns about incurring additional costs to bringing somebody in on a I guess, a consultant kind of basis, and with limited hours perhaps, or only can be contacted by phone or something like that, that you wouldn't have somebody available to have face-to-face conversations with. As it stands right now, I think the requirement to have additional resources available to handle the workload seems like a reasonable request, even if it's a stopgap between now and perhaps another approach. So I would be in favor of what's being proposed this evening.
Thank you. And as we grow together, right, with the AMP system, which has a lot of benefits, right? And we know some smaller municipalities like the town of Prescott have had AMPs for a very long time, and North Dundas, our capacity to answer questions of the public, not from someone who's particularly aggrieved by a ticket, but just explain the process, I think, is an important part of really articulating the value of AMPs. So I've learned some things tonight that are helpful to me. And we'll proceed with consideration of the recommendation and see where council lands. I want to thank Deputy Mayor for his articulation of some of those concerns. I think that conversation can continue as we navigate all of the workload demands on our municipal staff and what makes the best sense moving forward. But currently, the recommendations are that council hereby appoints Ashley Cuthbert and Laura Valcour as screening officers under the AMPS system, that council hereby appoints Stéphane Noel as a hearing officer under the administrative monetary penalty system, that council removes Rachel Jansen as a hearing officer under the administrative monetary penalty system, and that council directs the municipal clerk to bring forward an amendment to municipal officers bylaw number 0325 to reflect these appointments. I'll look for a mover and a seconder. All right, we have Councillor Strachan and Councillor Wilson. I would say, personally, I find it odd that council is being asked to sanction individuals to play the role of screening officers. I assume that's under the legislation, that those particular individuals have to come to us. We have to defer to you and your expertise in terms of how those people are identified. So, you know, it's not necessarily the case that we are involved in this kind of staffing decision, but understand that the AMPS parameters, I think, outline that those names must come to council. Is that the case, Mr. Baribeau?
Thank you for the question. I don't recall the legislation, but it's a common practice.
Right.
They are taking on additional roles. There are considerations that council should take into account when assigning a screening or hearing officer.
And have you outlined those considerations this evening?
There'd be considerations a bit. No, I have not, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
But it'd be considerations such as perhaps which department they come from, their capabilities based on history, based on training. But again, training in this specific matter, I do provide that training, and it refers back to the policy, the bylaw itself.
Yes, Ms. Dunlop.
Thank you. Under the Municipal Act, we do need to name certain certain officers of the corporation for certain operations, and this is one of those instances.
Right. No, and I totally accept that, but I think obviously we don't have the same level of insight as you would into the individuals who are named. So it just seems a bit odd to me in this situation, but I totally accept it's part of the AMPS process. So you're just doing what you need to do to move things forward. So we appreciate that. I mean, I certainly take Deputy Mayor's point that whether they're external or internal to the municipality, I think there's various considerations there, and as more municipalities go down this path, perhaps there will be other models for consideration as we get to know the system and the impact on workload, as you've suggested, for staff. So I think we moved and seconded the motion. Deputy Mayor? Yep.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, to Mr. Baribeau. Part of the training for these screening officers, does that include any kind of conflict resolution, mediation, how to de-escalate an individual who might be vexed about the...
Thank you for the question through you, Madam Mayor. We've had those discussions as part of also our regular training, and we debrief every quarter. We try to. Those discussions have taken place. We have discussed proper, I guess, the procedures when they have a second individual nearby. Those are part of the discussion, correct?
I think we're hearing lots of rain, eh? Are we hearing lots of rain from outside the building? Okay. Light showers? Yes, indeed. Okay. All right. Is there any other comments or questions in regards to this piece? I'm going to call the vote. All in favor? All right. Thanks. Okay. Thanks for being here, Mr. Barabo. We appreciate you shedding light on the AMPS system. I know we were excited to bring it online, given the considerable delays in the provincial offenses system. So I think we have a more efficient method, certainly within the municipality now. We're going to move on, colleagues. I certainly recognize, and Ms. Dunlop has been bringing to my attention the fact that she's not optimistic we're going to get through the entire agenda. Certainly, I think that may be a likelihood, so we'll have to make some decisions as we go. Next, we have the minutes of previous meetings, and I had asked for this item to be pulled. And to make it very simple this evening, I would like to ask that the June 24th minutes and the June 11th minutes not be approved this evening. I can follow up with the clerk's office in regards to those particular minutes, very minor considerations. But just to keep it simple, I think I'd like to ask my council colleagues that we not approve the June 24th or June 11th minutes this evening. And I'll leave it to council colleagues. We can adopt the remaining minutes, which would be May 9th, May 14th, May 27th, June 3rd, July 8th, July 14th, first special meeting, and July 14th, second special meeting of council. And I'll look for a mover and a seconder to adopt. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan and Deputy Mayor. Any other interventions in regards to the adoption of these minutes? Deputy Mayor?
When would you want those minutes to rise to council again?
September is fine. Okay. So with that, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Okay, that passes. And I can work with the clerk on June 24th and June 11th. Next are the advisory committee minutes. And I'll look to council colleagues for any comments or questions. Oh, no, we passed these under consent. Right, sorry, I apologize. All right, and that is the same for local board meeting minutes. All right, thank you. So then we'll move on, and we have an update on our Housing Accelerator Fund. So, welcome.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. It's my pleasure to be here tonight to provide an update to the Housing Accelerator Fund. And this report is to be received for information purposes, as it says in the first slide. So just as a reminder, the Housing Accelerator Fund is part of the National Housing Strategy. And the purpose of HAF is to enable more homes to be built faster. The municipality is able to receive up to $5.2 million to help deliver 671 new homes within the 3-year period that the HAF program has been bestowed upon us. And as I mentioned, more accessible and affordable homes is the goal, 671. And there are 7 initiatives over 3 years. Some are completed and some are nearing completion. So I have come to let you know that since the last time I was here, which was early February, we have completed first-year reporting, which enabled our second disbursement of funds. And we have also completed our 18-month reporting period since my last HAF update. So these are the 7 initiatives. Under these initiatives, under the HAF program, we have different milestones. And these, what I have in green here, represent the process of completion or implementation of those milestones under these broader headings. So when it comes to the infrastructure master plan, it is still in progress, and the completion for half purposes is expected December 2025. The municipal-owned lands review is considered complete under the HAF program, the disposition of lands. And inventory came in February 2025. Zoning reform is in process, mostly completed. The full completion is expected in August 2025. Development approval software is ongoing. The planning component of this interface is live and being tested. This component will be followed by bylaw and building, which are also both in the testing phase and will go live in the next coming months. However, it is deemed complete by CMHC as we have met all of our milestones. The additional residential unit continues to be in progress, but our milestones under CMHC are largely complete. And at this point, we have 3 grants awarded. All 3 grantees have also applied for the 2-bedroom designs. The municipal fee review continues to be in process, expected completion November 2025, and the stormwater master plan also is in progress, expected completion is December 2025. So I wanted to, with the encouragement of the director and deputy director, just let council know a component of the HAF initiative. I'm very fortunate to work closely with Carolyn Ragudo, who is the affordability coordinator with the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville, and we were able to do an affordable housing discovery trip together in May 2025. I've created a report that anyone is welcome to read in more detail, but I just wanted to bring to council the inspiration and learnings from that discovery trip. So we visited Altogether Housing in Belleville and Kingston Cooperative Homes. So let's see. So the rationale for this trip was to meet with and learn from affordable housing providers who've made innovative and successful strides in affordable housing offerings in Eastern Ontario. They were extremely gracious to welcome us and to provide us with a wealth of information in the roughly 2-hour conversations that we had with both housing providers. These are the people that we met with in Altogether Housing in Belleville and at the Kingston Co-op. So you'll see that this that these housing providers are largely board-driven, and so that's a really interesting component of what we were able to learn from these experts and innovators in the field. So one of the set of lessons learned that I wanted to present are the cooperative principles. So the idea that collaborations can make a project stronger and benefit the whole community. Each of these housing projects were based in collaboration, and that was an entire community collaboration, not just municipal, not just the housing providers, nonprofit housing providers, but also small-scale developers and cooperative communities that are part of the larger Kingston community, for example. So collaborative housing models can help to meet the needs of, can help to meet many needs in smaller communities. So for example, Altogether Housing in Belleville enables a one-stop shop of housing possibilities for Belleville as a whole by not only creating 17 new affordable units, but also integrating those units with other forms of housing, such as transitional and market rent. So there are philosophical and practical considerations of how cooperative principles like these and values fit into our current society. that we found really fascinating in terms of the discussion that we had, particularly with the cooperative housing provider. When it comes to key takeaways, we noted, Carolyn Ragudo and I noted that a strong and dedicated volunteer board is integral to these, to not only the development of these kinds of housing projects, but also the success of them. The dedication really matters. However, as we were told by both groups, that strong volunteer base is certainly aging out of their volunteer years, and so certainly have to create a stable foundation as they exit into more advanced retirement. These strong and dedicated volunteers, boards, they value housing as a human right, and they're invested in creating homes for everyone that are affordable, secure, accessible, sustainable, community-oriented, and allow people to live supported and with dignity. The viability of nonprofit developer partnerships was really highlighted in the model created by Altogether Housing. And certainly we discovered the replicability of that model in communities such as ours and in communities across the region, province, country. The importance of partnering with the correct, accountable community partners, and the importance of partnership agreements, particularly if there's a supportive housing component to the housing project. The importance of the right mix of residents and the right mix of community-based activities to create the community feel and integration and feelings of belongingness and feelings of home. The value and possibility of an inclusive housing project and meeting many needs in the local community. So those were some of our key takeaways. Some others were how Altogether Housing houses a hard-to-house population, a hard-to-house, quote-unquote, population, by providing a few transitional units in their project, which creates transitional housing that wouldn't have existed otherwise. The transitional housing tenants, therefore, have the opportunity to be truly transitional in that they are co-located in a quote-unquote regular or mixed use, mixed income project that also has market housing units. The importance of intentionality in building and sustaining community, both within and outside the walls of the units and buildings. The importance of municipal partners and the support, both financial and intangible, from all levels of government. The necessity of what I love that Carolyn calls lasagna funding, meaning the importance of continuously finding and layering funding sources to create an overall budget. And the cooperative housing folks were kind enough to bring out their budgets for us to see and move through sort of how their budgets started and ended, and all of the moving pieces that were components of that lasagna funding. And understanding the use of incentives to motivate cooperative residents to continue to fulfill the promise of affordable housing through cooperative ownership and living. So that was an interesting component of our conversation with Kingston Cooperative Homes in terms of finding ways to incentivize current residents to create more opportunities for units. So even in cooperative housing, you can find a not in my backyard kind of sentiment that has to be overcome, which was an interesting learning. So when it comes to possible action items to consider in the context of our municipality, so explore the expansion of cooperative housing in Leeds and Grenville, consider deeper collaboration with community partners and service providers in terms of supportive housing and opportunities there, explore the possibility of a community of inquiry or practice that focuses on affordable housing. And I think that there's an interesting rebranding opportunity that was sort of presented to us in the cooperative housing context, thinking about cooperative housing as intentional housing, which is much more a buzzword than cooperative housing, which was more understood in the 70s and 80s. So that is my presentation. Thank you so much, and thank you for indulging my presentation around bringing my enthusiasm and inspiration from that trip.
Thank you. We appreciate it. It's valuable to hear how you're working with partners and seeing different affordable housing models play out in other communities. So it's always good, I think, particularly with our affordable housing coordinator at the United Counties, who we know is a very, very enthusiastic and engaged individual, to see where those synergies might lie. I'll defer to council colleagues for any questions. I have a couple, but I'll recognize some hands first. Deputy Mayor, is he your hand?
Yeah, thank you very much. Comment and then a couple of questions. First of all, thank you for the progress report. It looks like we're making great progress with the HAF funding, and look forward to that $5.2 million once we check all the boxes. So great. Congratulations, and thank you very much for your work. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Dr. Shoemaker-Holmes. I'm sorry, I should have prefaced that. Before I moved to North Grenville, I lived for 10 years in the Arcadia Housing Co-op, which was somewhat unusual in that it had a mandate to house artists, but not just any artists. It was income tested, so there was a mix of both affordable housing options and market rent housing. And I wouldn't know from my neighbor whether they were getting some assistance. I paid market rent when I was there, which, by the way, was much less than real market rent, so it was a happy situation for me. And it was a wonderful building, a lot of synergy between various artists, et cetera. And I enjoyed living there, especially having control and ownership of the space. So it really was a community. So I can vouch for the experience of people, no matter what their income was, living together intentionally. I don't know if we need to change the name of co-op housing to intentional, but I get the point, because people talk more and more these days about intentional housing. I for one, would support pursuing any of the possible items that you've articulated in your report. But I do have a question. Where is the money? Is the Housing Accelerator Fund offering any incentives to create cooperative housing? I know CMHC, I think they underwrote the mortgage for the Arcadia Housing Co-op 30 years ago. And the province was also involved in establishing co-ops. But that fell out of favor, and now we're talking about it again after no funding happening. Did, in your discussions with some of these housing providers, co-op people who were operating these co-ops in Kingston and the other area, did they mention anything about funding coming online to help establish co-ops?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Barclay, yes, there are opportunities for cooperative housing funds that Carolyn articulated to me, and I cannot remember the parameters of in this moment, but we certainly spoke about them, and we spoke about them to the board directors at Kingston Cooperative Homes. So I can certainly find that information and provide it.
Do you know when it was established, the Kingston Co-op?
I believe it was 1985 in
Yeah.
that
Oh,
area.
Yeah, it's hard to find a new co-op being established. So that's why I was asking about the funding. Hopefully there's money provided, because I think it would work well in this community. Thanks.
I think what was innovative about Kingston Cooperative Homes was the fact that they have had phased development, and the project that we went to see was a more recent development, and that was a sort of not a high-rise unit, but a larger unit that was sort of in the middle of all of the townhomes and things like that that had been created over the 80s. And yes, yeah, I can't remember exactly all the phases, but it's been an interesting journey for them.
Any other questions, colleagues? Yes, Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you to Dr. Schumacher Holmes. The target or the goal is 671 new homes within 3 years in North Grenville. Where are we at in that number at this point, and how much time is left? We have a year and a half left, or?
Yes, that's right. And we have, so as of first year reporting, there was 284 new units created. And so we were well above our target for the first year. And we're well on track to meet and or exceed what we have articulated, at the outset.
And that is a mix of new market value homes or rentals, whatever, as well as some affordable ones.
Absolutely, it's all new rental units, or sorry, all new units.
All new units, whether
across the
they're
board.
across
Yes,
the board.
yeah.
Okay, so 671, and we were at 284 at the end of the first year.
That's right.
Okay.
And I believe, Mr. Mosher, you'd like to comment? I know you did very careful math when you submitted the application, so I'm sure you're watching this very closely.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor O'Sullivan. So year to date, as of June 18th of this calendar year, we have built 424 of the housing units of the 671. So we're at about the halfway point in June 2025. So we're more than halfway to the number of units. We're about just under half in terms of our missing middle units. We have 133 of 289. That's including semis, towns, and ARUs is counting towards those. And we've blown past our target for multi-housing units. With a couple of the apartments coming online, we're at 199 units of the 36 that we were required. The one thing we are a little bit lower on is the affordability. We haven't met the 17% target yet, but with other developments like 120 Rubin Crescent coming online, we anticipate that those numbers will start to average up.
Thank you. If I may, one more question then. You said the target is 17% of the 671 to be affordable? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple of comments. In regards to cooperative housing, my understanding is that New Commons is potentially pursuing a cooperative housing model, if I'm not mistaken. So obviously, if and that is the not-for-profit housing developer looking at building on Rubin Crescent. So clearly, if in fact they were successful in achieving funding for a cooperative model, that would bring some cooperative housing here. I mean, obviously, I've been around the county table for 7 years. The amount of capital money available right now is minimal. And the county is not pursuing cooperative housing, as lovely as it is. I don't see any evidence of that yet. So I would be interested in better understanding what the critical path might be or the long game is on this, because I don't see that in the short term, certainly the United Counties is necessarily in a position to enable any cooperative housing, though I accept that I know that Prime Minister Mark Carney and certainly the leadership of the current federal cabinet is such that I think more money will be and more funds will be made available over the years. Of course, we have our own Bell Hall initiative to contend with, which is still in play. So not all the details are available at this moment. But I think your presentation, Jackie, prompts me to also re-engage with my colleagues at the county table, because we often talk about affordable housing, supportive housing, expanding the number of RGI units, but rarely do we talk about cooperative housing. So maybe this is an opportunity to better understand where the counties is as well, recognizing that I think Deputy Mayor is right. There's a lot of social capital in this community, which I think would be invaluable for a cooperative housing initiative. I think our collective concern is where the resource is coming for new capital builds, or are there ways to look at kind of very small kind of micro pilots, which allow for the establishment of some very modest cooperative housing that could potentially, grow over time. So your presentation has sort of gotten my brain going in terms of how to potentially sustain a conversation with some other players. So appreciate that you're bringing this to the table, and there's no doubt that I think we all hope for a resurgence in some of that cooperative housing. And clearly the federal government invested significantly in cooperative housing many decades ago, and then it sort of fell off the radar. I do just have two additional questions, and I'll try to make them quick. The one of the first ones that came to mind during your presentation is, I understand that the municipal fee review included a fee review for Parks and Rec facilities. In particular, I, at the time, raised a little bit of concern about making sure that there was appropriate consultation with all the users of our Parks and Rec facilities when it came to the municipal fee review. I'm a bit concerned that if the completion date is November, I'm not aware of whether or not any of those consultations would have taken place, what the process would be. Of course, we now have a new director of Parks and Rec, so perhaps that's a piece that she's taking on. But I know, because we did an all fee review, that I think there are some implications well outside of housing that I think at the time we raised. And maybe, Ms. Dunlop, the question is more for you than Jackie, in terms of how that fee review is being undertaken when we speak specifically about non-building and planning fees.
At this point in time, thank you for the question, Madam Mayor. At this point in time, the RFP has been let. CN Watson has been undertaking the data collection, looking at our fees, looking at other fees. We haven't seen any draft numbers back. We have not started the public consultation, but yes, there is scheduled to be one. So I can't speak to it, but I can speak to the Deputy Director of Finance and bring that information back to Council.
And I thank you. I appreciate that. I guess my question is, will the new Director of Parks and Rec have any involvement in the Parks and Rec piece of it, right? Because I don't think this is a process that could be exclusively led by finance or planning and building when we're talking about Parks and Rec, because clearly, as we all know, this community is very engaged and I think vested in the accessibility of our Parks and Rec facilities. So I assume, or maybe you can follow up and provide Council with a better understanding of what that consultation process will look like, specifically for Parks and Rec facilities.
Certainly, Your Worship, we can do that, but it is a project led by finance, but it is a partnership, collaboration with all departments, because all fees are under review, not just recreation, not just planning and building, but all fees across the board. We know that from a development perspective, there have been a couple departments that have been not charging fees, that historically other municipalities have been charging certain fees. So that is also part of that consideration. Consultation is part of this process. The recreation director is involved, but we can bring back what the communication and consultation program is expected to be.
Great, thank you. My other question is, and really wonderful to see all of the community engagement around the ARU program. So we've awarded 3 grants. Can you just remind me, Ms. Shoemaker-Holmes, what what did we set as targets? So again, it's just at this hour, I can't quite remember. What is our stretch goal here in terms of the number of ARUs we would be helping to enable, right, through our grants program when it comes to ARUs?
We were hoping for 15 ARUs under the HAF program.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd be curious, and maybe by the end of the year, we'll be totally on track. 3 is great. I know that you've worked extremely hard and provided lots of great information to help people understand the program. I'd be curious at a different point, not this evening, to get a better understanding of what you're seeing in those conversations, right? When people want to build an ARU, where are the stumbling blocks for them? Like, just given the conversations you're having, where could we potentially do a little bit more, right? And not just within the parameters of the HAF funding, but just as a municipality, because we know that there's been very, very strong interest in ARUs, and I can't imagine how many revealing conversations you've probably had with, right, property owners, whether they're considering, additional dwelling units for their young adult children or their senior parents. So I would appreciate at a later point through council a bit of insight into what's the lay of the land from your perspective, because I think that could help council think about what the options are to grow the program sort of well beyond HAF or further leveraging HAF money or what have you.
Thank you for that, Madam Mayor. I wanted to say that we've exceeded the number that we set out on the non-grant side. So we're at 19 since starting HAF. The deputy director and I have been in conversation about the grant and potentially increasing funds toward that grant. So that is a conversation that is being that is ongoing, and it's certainly we're trying to understand what people need in order to best enable.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And so when we talk about 19 ARUs, and maybe I can direct this to you, Mr. Mosher, ARUs are, that 19 would be inclusive of what exactly? Beyond the 3 grants that we've provided?
Yeah. So beyond, Madam Mayor, then there'd be 16 additional that are, the permits have been pulled for them,
Gotcha.
and they're in construction. So, and I can tell you that 15, so there was 7 in 2024 since the announcement of the funding. There's been 12 in 2025 year to date as of June 18. 15 of these are in Urban Service Area 1. So that's kind of where you really want the most of those units. 1 in Urban Service Area 2 and 3 in the rural area.
Okay. And so when we were dealing with the allocation bylaw and that semi-detached house, right, was part of the calculations, and there were 2, would we consider the 2 additional residential units in that, I think, proposed semi-detached house as part of that count? Is that right?
That's correct.
It's whether the count includes purpose-built ARUs or where an existing homeowner wants to add to their, primary dwelling structure. Is that right?
Yeah, we aren't distinguishing between whether it's a standalone, like
Gotcha.
an attached ARU,
Yeah.
or purpose-built addition or basement suite renovation or something.
And I don't think there's any need to. I was just trying to, in my mind, get it straight. Like, how do we count those ARUs? Okay, perfect. So 19 is good news, I think. It feels like, and again, when I'm out in the communities, I think all of us are, I think a lot of people really want to see if they can make that happen. So great the more people build ARUs or purchase properties with ARUs, I think the more we normalize them as a viable housing option. So it's very exciting. You can see I have a lot of energy for it. So look forward to further discussions in the future. I think if there's no other questions or comments, we will look to receive the Housing Accelerator Fund Update report, and I'll look for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Strachan, Councillor Wilson, thank you so much. And I will call the question. All in favor? Good, thank you. Next, we're going to our Bell Hall parking lot lease. I don't believe we have a report for this particular item, or do we? Yeah, we do have a report. Indeed, that's totally fine. So Ms. Martin, I think you're going to speak briefly to this then?
Thank you, Your Worship. I will keep it extremely brief. As we move forward with the Bell Hall project, we find ourselves in a position where we just need to formalize how the parking is going to operate at Bell Hall. And as such, and in discussions with the campus board, they would prefer that we lease a parking lot for a long period of time to be associated with Bell Hall. And to that end, I am asking that council gives some delegated authority to the chief administrative officer just to sign that lease agreement to lease approximately 80 spaces. It is one parking lot that's located just to the west of the of Bell Hall, within close proximity. And I do note that there is some existing parking at Bell Hall, but it is quite limited, and that would, as it's redeveloped, be more intended for accessible parking for those residents that do need it. And in good faith with the campus board, we've also talked about finding some synergies for some of the existing users of that parking lot as well.
Thank you. Might I ask, are we paying for these parking spaces? What's the arrangement? $1 a year for 80 parking spaces? Excellent. That's the right price. Okay. So we'll look for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Wilson and Councillor Sullivan, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. A question. Absolutely. Yep.
What was the parking ratio used to determine 80 spaces?
Thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor. Through your worship, we have a current parking ratio of 0.9 parking spaces to unit. There's about 80 parking spaces within the parking lot. I didn't want to try and section out the parking lot, so we just kind of encompassed the entire lot itself. So we're just defining that area within the agreement. It wasn't to try and meet the parking ratios. This would exceed it. But it's just a recognition that so many spots in the future would be dedicated for parking for the residents of the building. So there would be some potential marking of spots to ensure that their spots aren't taken. When it's busier at the campus, I will say that when you look at a lot of the aerial imagery of a lot of the parking lots in the campus on a day-to-day, this is a very underutilized lot. So it makes sense, given its proximity to Bell Hall and its current utilization, and the fact that there's an even larger parking lot just right next door to the west of this lot to tie some of the spaces up for Bell Hall.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. So I'll look. We did try to move that motion. Okay. Did you get a mover and a seconder? Who are they? Okay, thank you. Councillor Wilson and Councillor Sullivan, thank you. And the recommendation is that Council direct the CEO to enter into a lease agreement with the Kemptville campus for approximately 80 parking spaces for use by the tenants of Bell Hall. I will call the vote. All in favor? All right. Colleagues, do you need 5 minutes? Are we good? The next report is somewhat substantial, so I think it's going to take some time to get through. Is council willing to power through, or do you need 5 minutes? Want to power through? Okay. I asked the question, so I accept the answer. Mr. Finley, you're walking us through this, is that right?
That is correct, Madam Mayor. So thank you, Council. I don't have a presentation, unfortunately, but I do have the report for Council to look at. And this is in consideration to our current curbside collection services contract. So the municipality currently provides biweekly garbage collection, weekly source-separated organics collection, seasonal bulky item, and leaf and yard waste collection. So these are 4 events per year, 2 events in the spring and 2 events in the fall. And that is our core curbside collection. Back in 2023, the transition occurred, and we've had a few presentations to council in regards to curbside recycling, which has now been responsibility of the province, and they look after our collection for that program. As part of that, commercial development were not considered eligible under that program. And as such, council did approve for 65 commercial locations that were non-eligible for recycling curbside to be collected through the municipality. So this has been done separate from the rest of the program. We currently have 7,435 stops in the municipality for our collections, and our current collections contract does end at the end of this year, end of 2025, and as such, we need a new contractor to move on with these services. So staff did issue a request for proposal earlier this year to provide these services. It did, part of the RFP did identify for a 7-year term contract, and this was done to align with the provincial recycling contract, which is also a 7-year contract, and seems to be the way a number of municipalities are moving, just to align those programs. The municipality did receive 3 proposals in which we reviewed and evaluated based on both a technical and financial merit. Based on that evaluation, the overall recommendation is to award to Ontario Environmental, and it is for a total amount of just over $1.25 million to provide the services that I identified above, and I'll go through them in a little bit more detail. The one item that we did break out was the curbside collection for those 65 businesses, and the idea from that, and again, something that staff is not recommending to continue with, is due to the fact that we don't provide that service for any residential or any other commercial business throughout the municipality. So as there's been a 2-year, a bit of a transition period, and seeing the costs increase, we aren't recommending to continue that service, or not recommending for that. So the detailed breakdown that is in the report, basically for the curbside collection, the organics collection, the bulky collection for 4 events a year, and the leaf and yard waste collection for 4 events a year, did come in at approximately a 46% increase from what our current contract is. But there is some variations within that. In terms of our solid waste piece of the contract, it was about a 4% increase. We did see a 75% increase in regards to the organics collection, and 158% increase for both the bulky item and leaf and yard waste collections. We did also see a 120% increase for the curbside dual stream recycling for those 65 units, which is part of the rationale for not recommending that we move forward there. Of course, that's the cost for the collection. We do try and offset that through bag tags where applicable. So we do have our typical solid waste bag tags, and they are $2.75 a tag. So that is the charge to put every bag out. In 2024, we did note that we did have an overall revenue of just over $481,000 in bag tags. However, that also does account for bag tags that are used at our waste transfer station, not necessarily all curbside collection. For bulky item collection, we do charge $12.50 for those tags. We did in 2024 receive a revenue of $1,500 to offset against that. And the leaf and yard waste, we do charge $1 per tag that's put out. And we did see a revenue of $6,353 to offset against that part of the program. So we have seen some significant, or are seeing significant increases in costs through the proposal. In discussions with other municipalities, overall, there seems to be an increase in this type of service. It's the nature of collections. And we will also look, as was mentioned as part of the fee reviews, depending on what is approved, we will look at these tags and see if there's any adjustments that would be recommended to council. So based on that, again, we are looking to move forward with our curbside collection, our curbside organics collection, the bulky item collection, and leaf and yard waste to maintain those services. We staff, based on the review of the curbside recycling and again not being provided to the rest of the municipality, are not recommending to move forward with that, but happy to have the discussion with council as needed.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate it and recognize there's some cost acceleration, but as you've noted, we're a growing municipality. Inflationary pressures on many different municipal services are a reality. So I'll go to Councillor Strachan and we'll take it from there. Councillor Wilson, Deputy Mayor. So we got 3 out of 4. All right. Councillor Strachan.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, to Director Finlay. So notwithstanding the percentages, because a big percentage of a small number is still a small number, but 75% increase for the separated organics is reflective of 284,000. So that's a very big jump of the overall 397,000 approximate jump in the increase for the next year. What is driving that significant increase in the cost for the separated organics?
Thank you for the question, and through you, Madam Mayor. Part of that, from what we can understand, again, when the contractor provides the RFP, they don't provide the rationale for some of that breakdown. But I guess for a bit of background, our waste collection and our bulky item and our leaf and yard waste collection, once they're collected, they're taken back to our waste transfer station, and then we look after disposal from that point. Where organics, that collection through our contract with the City of Ottawa, the truck, once collected, has to drive to the Ottawa, the converted site, drop out, potentially, depending on the service that is there, may have to wait, drop off the organics there, and then make their way back. Again, as it's improved in collections, takes multiple trucks now to get there, so there's an increased amount of travel time and pieces of that. So that is one contributor that we see as being part of that program.
So potentially, because of the volume that we're producing for that pickup, we have more trucks on the road, and that is driving some of the costs. Is that a short version of what you've just said?
Correct. Just due to the timing, how long it takes to go to the site and back, where the volumes from waste can be dropped off quicker in Oxford Mills and back onto our roads, not running to Ottawa and coming back. So
yeah, understood. I mean, the location of the drop-off hasn't changed, but I think there's probably more vehicles on the road would possibly be a significant contributor. Okay. I'm just wondering, because I think that, this is seen as a big win from waste diversion perspective, and I'm fully supportive of that. Obviously, I think that significant jump in the cost is punitive for a municipality the size of ours. So I just wanted to know if there was additional insight into where that jump was coming from. Thank you.
If I can add to that, just there were some efficiencies prior when the recycling program was under our program as well, because both were going to Ottawa to be dropped off, where now that's, again, not part of our purview. So there might have been some efficiencies in the old contract versus the new in terms of how they were disposing of items.
All right. Other questions? Oh, of course. Councillor Wilson, Deputy Mayor. Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Peckford. Just the organics, the separated organics, that's the green bin. Would it be cheaper to move to a bi-weekly collection?
Thank you for the question. From what our understanding of it, it would, the volumes probably wouldn't change, so it would still need that amount of movement. It hasn't been something we've fully explored. It was just to maintain the current one. We do also see, if you're not offering it more often, is the encouragement to use it more, so that you do get that offset rather than the solid waste. So there's some components that would have to be looked at for that.
Okay. All right, thank you. Supplemental, can I have another question? The 65 non-eligible businesses, that's only for pickup of recycling?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's correct.
Okay, so is it my understanding that the recycling component will not be taken to our waste transfer station, that it will be taken somewhere else in the future?
Through you, Madam, that is correct as well. It'll be taken somewhere else.
So those and no one will be allowed to drop off recyclables at the current waste transfer station?
Through you, Madam, that is correct. Currently, commercial businesses aren't supposed to be taking it there at this time as well either.
They're not supposed to be?
Under the program, it's only supposed to be residential recycling.
Okay, so maybe I'm naive, but where would those businesses be able to take their recycling? Or they're just not going to recycle and put it as part of their regular garbage? I may have missed that. I don't know.
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, it is an excellent question. It's one that's been raised ever since the new program was enacted and commercial became non-eligible, how that was going to work. There are a number of private sites or private collectors that the businesses could do, because the idea is business pays for their own recycling, residential is, and that helps pay for the residential program through the province. So they could look at a private collection.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Director Finley. So from what I understand from your report, thank you for the report. It's really detailed that our curbside bulky item collection is fairly, I would characterize it as undersubscribed. We had 120 tickets sold for $12.50, resulting in revenue of $1,500, and the cost is going up to $78,000 a year. I just don't think that's sustainable. It would be great if we had more uptake from residents to use it, but there are a lot of private handymen who will run things to the transfer station for a cost more than $12.50, granted, but still with 120 tickets, you know, to put a couch out, you need 2 tickets, so it could be 60 residents taking advantage of the program for $78,000. I just don't think it's viable for us to continue that program. That's a comment and a suggestion to the rest of council that we may not choose to approve that item in the contract. At least I'm suggesting we don't.
Certainly, and again, council colleagues, please feel free to re-enter the discussion. I would concur that bulky items certainly up to now seem to be undersubscribed. I think the leaf and yard waste collection is doing relatively well. So I was glad to see those numbers in there, but I too share the concern that the bulky item collection really financially doesn't make a lot of sense at this stage. Just given its undersubscription. Of course, we know that it's structured so that it's only 4 times a year. So lots of reasons maybe for it not being subscribed or sufficiently utilized. However, I concur with Deputy Mayor. There's a number of private individuals who are active in the community, who run small businesses where you can get things taken to the transfer station. So I would be inclined to also revisit the bulky item collection item. I totally accept that the cost of a separated organics collection, which is something this community has embraced, continues to embrace, appreciates, I think, for large measure, as much in rural areas as in urban areas, is such that this is the cost of doing business, and there it is. It's not the only item that we confront where there are significant cost pressures. Insurance is another one. So I wouldn't say that this is necessarily an outlier in terms of some of the costing pressures we faced. We can talk about the sewage treatment plant at the same time. So, for the most part, I think that the residents in the municipality are very appreciative for the services we provide, and generally satisfied with the contractor. And I note that obviously you're recommending, Mr. Finley, that we continue the relationship with the contractor who's been doing the work for us for the last 6 years, 5? Okay. But I too would be asking my council colleagues at this juncture if we want to reconsider the inclusion of the bulky item collection. I also understand that our leaf and yard waste collection, it's $1 a tag. Certainly, I think many might be inclined to pay $2, right? So I do wonder if a little bit of an adjustment around that fee would be fair, given that we are investing considerably to make that service available. So perhaps there'd be rationale in looking at a fee adjustment, which hopefully would obviously not disincentivize people from using a service that many, many residents asked us to introduce, but would better reflect just some of the costs that we're incurring as a municipality. Councillor Strahan.
Thank you, through Madam Mayor, to Director Finley. I guess in general, maybe. The bulky items, I agree, is definitely an outlier in what we're getting out of the benefit, and the difference between bulky items and leaf and yard waste is we know when the leaves fall. Bulky items, if you got something, a couch that's rotting in your basement, you're going to get rid of it pretty fast. So I think that the timeliness of it is likely a driver for not having the same kind of uptake. Regarding leaf and yard waste, I think increasing it probably is reasonable to a certain point. Given the current state that we're in with our fire risk and so on, I wouldn't want that to be a deterrent for people to remove their yard waste, because it does become a fire hazard at a certain point. So hopefully that could be monitored. A mention from Director Finley was to possibly increase the bag tags. I would suggest that would be something we would consider at the very last of all the options that we have before us. I know it's not a popular program for many people. It does certainly help offset, and it does have its benefits and reasons for it. But I think you reach a tipping point where it becomes too much for some folks to wrap their heads around. So I wouldn't be at this stage, I think, supportive of seeing an increase for the bag tags. Thank you.
And thank you, Councillor Strachan, and I tend to agree with that analysis as well at the present time. So I hear you. So maybe just to advance the discussion, we're at 9:49 p.m. We could at least consider, at your discretion, council colleagues, the potential approval of the award of item 1, curbside garbage collection, item 2, curbside source separated organics collection, and item 4, curbside leaf and yard waste collection. In regards to the RFP NG 2502 municipal curbside waste collection for a 7-year term to Halton Recycling Limited, also known as Emterra Environmental, in the amount of $1,265,278.62, excluding applicable taxes for 2026, and that council. Oh, and I'll stop there.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, but the $1,265,278 does include the bulky item pickup, so we can, I'm sure Director Finley can provide you an amended dollar value.
Absolutely. Feel free.
Perfect. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, removing bulky item would be $1,186,472.46, excluding applicable taxes.
Excellent. Do you have that, Ms. McKenna? Okay, good. Thank you. And I maybe perhaps just to the point of just reconsidering the fee for the yard waste and leaf collection, you could bring back a recommendation to us. I don't know if council feels inclined to set that fee tonight, but perhaps, again, at your discretion, colleagues.
If that is sorry, Madam Mayor, if you wish, we can bring it back at the budget deliberations time, or Public Works can bring it at a later date.
If I may, it is being included as part of the fee reviews. So they can give them the new numbers, they can run some scenarios and provide recommendations as part of that review.
So the bag tag program is part of the fee review?
Correct.
Right. And again, who is informing the fee review when it comes to the bag tag collection? Wouldn't it be you?
Correct, yeah, we're
Right.
providing this information. We had to see what was going to be approved. They do have the numbers that were being proposed, so they'll incorporate it to see the overall cost of the programs and come back to council with all fees.
But wouldn't you be most involved in making the recommendation on any adjustments to the fees when it comes to the bag tag program?
As part of the CN Watson consultation, yes, yeah, we're the ones that'll bring that information back.
Right. Okay. I guess I'm just raising the question that I appreciate that a third-party consultant is supporting the fee review, but ultimately I think the conversation will be with you in terms of this particular program, more or
Correct.
less, right? Recognizing that there's a wholesale review underway. So what's the timing for that? Oh, we did, and I understand the report said November, but I'm not sure if that's realistic or not at the present time.
I can't answer that, Your Worship, but we can follow up with Treasury, and I can circulate council in an email the timelines, as well as I said, the comms plan and the consultation.
The contract is effective as of when for this particular renewal?
This will be in effect as of January 1, 2026.
I see. Okay. So we have a little bit of time, arguably.
That would be correct because the bag tag fees are separate. This is purely the collections
Right.
contract piece,
Right.
so that we can set the tags whenever it works for council.
Right. Okay. Okay, great. And I suppose we could also consider some incremental adjustments, but and not to get ahead of the game, this council may choose to keep it just where it is. So I will look to another council colleague, to Councillor Wilson.
Quickly, through you, Mayor Bedford.
100%, please take your time.
Mike Finley. Are the tipping fees included in these prices?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Wilson, no, they're not. They're on top.
On top.
On top. This is purely the collection.
Okay, so then over and above, there would be tipping fees. So the curbside leaf and yard waste collection, that's the cost for them to do that for us and take it to our waste station?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's correct. They take it to our station to drop off. The only additional fees there, we do chip it. There'd be that inclusion. But
And we sell that?
correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. Anything else from council colleagues? Yes, Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just know that there's been a lot of requests for increased number of events for yard waste pickup. I think there's a lot of people who bag their grass clippings and they would like to have more regular pickup. I don't know, once a month or whatever. So I don't know how that would affect the cost, how it would, if we increase the price. I think $2 a bag wouldn't be unreasonable for picking that up. And perhaps it would encourage more composting for some people.
For sure, that's something to raise. I presume at this time, Mr. Finley, we wouldn't have the financial assessment of what that would actually cost. So perhaps it's something that you can reflect on, or can be, maybe you can provide us with some additional information at a later time.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In terms of the collection, so it's the 78,000 is for 4 events. It works out to about 19,700 and change for a week's collection.
Right.
So that's the cost if we're to increase because one event is 1 week, so we make sure we get everybody.
Right.
So that's increasing that would, every week is just for a $19,000
Right,
increase.
for sure, okay. So Councillor Sullivan, you'll have to take that under advisement.
Absolutely, and I'm not proposing that we.
Yes.
I think doing something maybe that would encourage more composting by individuals, or just some other option for them, rather than, I do know that some people dump their grass clippings along the rail trail, for example, and in the parking lots at Ferguson Forest, I've seen that too. So if we could do something to encourage more composting and avoiding illegal tipping of their
Right.
grass.
Absolutely, I know it remains a concern. Okay, so I don't know if I secured a mover and a seconder for the motion, right? Okay, Councillor Strachan, thank you very much. Councillor Wilson, appreciate that. And again, we have the adjusted number or financial impact here. So I just read it out to us one more time, Mr. Finley. So the value of this contract, if we omit the bulky item collection, is
$1,186,472.46.
okay. And then more information to be D on whether or not there's any adjustment to any bag tag fees, right? Okay. Council colleagues, is there anything else you'd like to add to the discussion before I call the vote? I'm not seeing anything. Okay, great. I will call the question. All in favor? Okay, perfect. That does carry. Thank you very much. So at this late stage, council colleagues, we do have a curfew at 10:30 that we can choose to extend. I'm looking to you. Is it your preference that we now defer the affordable housing targets and incentives? I know the presentation is fairly substantial. It's not obvious to me whether or not you prefer to defer the item entirely. Initially, we had thought that maybe there could be a preliminary overview followed by a more substantial discussion in October, or potentially even in September. I know Ms. Dunlop and I have been going back and forth on whether or not there might be an earlier opportunity to at least receive the presentation. I think it's about 20 minutes for the presentation, if I'm not mistaken, looking at all the materials, and I think there's some complexity to the presentation. So I'm a little bit concerned about whether or not it makes sense at this late hour to start the presentation, even though I think that was what we had hoped to do. So council colleagues, is it your appetite to defer this item entirely until we can get it on potentially the September 2nd agenda or the October agenda, or maybe a bit of both, where we can have an initial presentation in early September, followed by, and there's an August 26th meeting as well. So are we okay then to defer this particular item? Looking to you for direction, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sullivan. Yes, Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you. I'm fine with deferring it, but I would like to point out that the motion that was passed regarding this on April 16th was that the minimum would be 15% for affordable housing. And that was passed on April 16th, and the minutes of that meeting were approved on May the 6th, and the minutes reflect that the minimum was going to be 15%.
Okay. Ms. Dunlop, do you want to speak to that? Because I know that question was raised earlier this week.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship, for the question. The report was based on the written minutes. So we took the approved written minutes as the basis of the report. So we can raise that when the report is brought back to council at a later date. But that was the basis of the notice of motion.
The approved written minutes said 15%. The notice of motion in the agenda was between 10 and 15%, but the minutes that were approved said 15%.
I will have to go back and check, but it was my understanding that it was the minutes that represented that figure. So I will, when this report comes back, I will have that clarity.
Okay, thank you.
And Councillor O'Sullivan, just to clarify, your understanding of the minutes that we passed by this council subsequent to that meeting capture a 15%, not a 10%. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's right. It
Okay.
was 15%. I can just tell you what it said. It said, Deputy Mayor John Barclay presented the notice of motion and advised his intentions to remove any reference under 15%. Councillor Stracher-Yan supported based on council's experience with developers. And it was moved by John Barclay and seconded by myself that council direct staff to review the affordable housing policy and return with a report no later than Q3 2025, recommending A, flexibility in the 25% affordable housing target while maintaining a minimum of 15% affordability, and B, additional incentives for developers to achieve a minimum of 15% affordability. And that was approved on April 16th, and it was in the minutes that we approved on May the 6th.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification. We appreciate it. Okay, so Ms. McKenna, do we need to do anything in order, do we have to formally defer this item? Okay, so I'll just look for a mover and a seconder to defer. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, Councilor Stracher-Yan. And I will call the question. All in favor? And of course, Ms. Dunlop, you're going to follow up on what was captured in the minutes and how it might change or impact this report. And at this stage, Ms. Dunlop, I'm looking to you. We have an August 26th, a September 2nd, and an early October meeting. I think our hope is, and I know such good work has been expended to bring this to council, that we would be able to revisit the report sooner rather than later, so we can work together on what makes the most sense. But appreciate that planning staff. We're prepared to have a deeper dive into this evening, and we'll get back at it very soon. So with that in mind, I'm going to now move us to notices of motion, and I believe that Deputy Mayor, we do have a notice of motion. Would you like to read that notice of motion?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll read it. Whereas the Council of the Municipality of North Grenville recognizes the importance of banner displays within the municipality, and whereas the Council of the Municipality of North Grenville wishes to provide a structured and consistent approach for considering eligible applicants requesting to display banners according to an effective schedule of rotation within the municipality, and whereas the Council of the Municipality of North Grenville recognizes that banners can be an effective means to promoting civic, charitable, or community-oriented events and activities occurring in the municipality, and whereas the Council of the Municipality of North Grenville deems it advisable to adopt a street banner display policy, now therefore Council directs staff to consult with key civic and community stakeholders to bring forward a draft street banner display policy to Council no later than Q4, i.e. December 31st, 2025.
Now, I note, and maybe Ms. McKenna, you can help me here. It says deliberation. Are we to deliberate on this evening? Or is this just the introduction of the notice of motion? Oh, I see.
This is the opportunity.
This is the opportunity to deliberate. Okay. So we'll see if at this time, council colleagues have any comments in regards to the motion?
I can speak to the rationale behind it.
Sure.
With this discussion began at the BIA, who have purchased additional banners. I know it involves contractors, but we have possibly an increasing number of places to hang banners, i.e. with the opening of 43 and the lighting along 43, we'd have to talk to the counties. But the idea is to rotate them on a logical basis so we can get maximum impact out of having that display. So currently, right now, it's in Old Town Kemptville, and the BIA has contributed more banners, and there should be more banners coming, I imagine, for one event or another. So we need to be able to manage it, and I think having a policy would be a great idea.
Great. Thank you. Councillor Wilson?
Through you, Mayor Peckford, just in addition to what Deputy Mayor Barclay has said, we've had some inquiries from some private artists that would like to have their creations displayed into a banner and put up. But, you know, so there's been a lot of inquiries. The other reason that we decided to move this forward was that I got a few complaints about the changing of the banners and why are we leaving these banners up so long and why are we not taking them down, or when are we putting these ones up? And so, but I know it's expensive to change the banners every time. We have to hire a contractor to do it, so understandably, so we thought we would move a policy forward.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Strachan?
Through you, Madam Mayor, not exactly the same thing, but we have a flag policy, so why not have a banner policy? Because we tend to see complaints around the same time of year each year. So having clearly defined rules as to what can go up when and for how long seems to make a whole lot of sense to me.
I concur. Any other comments? Seeing none, then I'll look for a mover. I presume, Deputy Mayor, you wish to move it. Councillor Wilson, you'll second. Thank you. And I presume there are no other comments. So I'm going to call the vote. All in favor? That carries. Thank you so much. So with that, colleagues, we're nearing the end here. And we'll look to, what are we doing? We are confirmation bylaw. Thank you. Just lost my place. Yes. So we have no miscellaneous unfinished business. Of course, just to confirm, we have no one except one staff person in the audience here at the Municipal Theatre. So questions from the media and the public, I presume, are nil. And we'll now move to confirmation bylaw. That is that bylaw 6725 to confirm proceedings of council at its regular meeting held on August 13th, 2025, be adopted as presented. Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Sullivan, Deputy Mayor, thank you. Calling the question, all in favor, thank you. And adjournment, and that is the regular meeting of council adjourned at 10:07 p.m. Looking for a mover and a seconder, Councillor Strachan, Councillor Wilson. I will call the question to adjourn at now 10:08. All in favor. Thank you.